You know, been looking online for different hearing aids. Looked at hear.com, drove down to Costco, talked to them. Resound was one of them as well. You all seem very similar. Why should I go with you?
Well, I probably first need to understand your needs. What is it that you need?
Why should I go with Miracle Ear?
Because we're the best.
Why should I go with you?
Because I'm going to change your life. I want to make you hear again.
Okay, I want all three of you to come up on stage with me real quick. Now, I'm going to start with you. Who's one of your competitors in the marketplace?
Costco.
Costco. If I asked a hearing specialist at Costco the same exact question I asked you, and I said, why should I go with you? What do you think they would say?
Yeah, sure. Costco would be like, oh, yeah, it's cheaper.
Okay, they say it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay. And who's one of your biggest competitors besides Costco?
Here USA.
Okay, here USA online. If I asked a hearing specialist there the same question, and I said, why should I go with you? What do you think they would say?
Sure, because somebody referred them to us and they believe in our product.
Okay, and if I asked one of your competitors the same question I asked you, what do you think they would say?
Same quality, better price.
Okay, thank you for that. So, what I think I heard all of you just say in your mind is that in your prospect's brain, you all sound the what? You all sound the same. Could that be a problem for you? If I should describe the word sales or selling in just one word, what would that word be? Product, what else? Help, service, what else? Relationships? Satisfaction, personal? Okay. Value. Okay, I like all of what you said and I agree with it. What if we took all of that and we combined it in one word? That word is change. You see, all selling is change. So whether your prospects are wanting something better or they're moving away from pain, it's all about change. So it's about how good you are at getting your prospects to view that in their mind, that by them changing their situation, that means purchasing what you are offering them, that by them doing that, that is far less risky for them than them doing nothing at all, staying in the status quo, their problems stay the same, and nothing ever changes. Which is more risky? Now, think about what I just said. Okay? All selling is change, yet human beings don't like change. Why do we not like change? We especially don't like it when it's initiated by some pushy salesperson that's ready to push their products or services quickly in a conversation. And repeatedly, human behavior shows that we value something that is more familiar to us, even if we don't like it that much, over something that is new, something that is foreign to us. And I'll give you an example of this. All of you know the person that always tells you bad things about the person they're with, right? So raise your hand if you know of a business associate, a friend, a family, a relative, and all they do is complain about the person they're with. He said this, she said this. Raise your hand if you know somebody like that. Everybody knows that person, right? Somebody, you guys don't know anybody back here? I'm so shocked. Raise your hand if you know somebody that complains about the person they're with all the time. Or maybe the ones not raising their hand, maybe that's you. Oh my gosh. Now, do you ever wonder why they stay in that relationship even though they don't like it? It's because they're afraid of change. There's that word change again. So, how do we help? So that's what you're going up against pretty much with every single prospect you talk to some degree. Now the question is, how do you help your potential customers overcome that fear of change? It's very easy once you learn the skills how. It's also on the flip side very hard if you don't. First thing we have to realize is that you're not selling the thing. So in your case, you're not selling them hearing aids. You're selling them the results of what the hearing aids will do for them. Now that's going to be different for every prospect you talk to, right? For one patient, it could be to get their hearing back so they can create memories with their grandkids. For another patient, it could be getting their hearing back because they're younger, their hearing's going out early, and they're having a hard time at their job, and they might be worried they're getting fired. See, for every patient, that's going to depend on what you pull out of them. So you're always selling the results of what the hearing aids do for them. You're not selling the hearing aids themselves. Now, how are we going to do this? I'm going to ask you this question. How are you going to have a competitive advantage over everybody else in your market in 2024, 2025, 2026, and beyond? What's going to separate you from everybody else? How many other companies in your industry all say what? We're the best. We're the cheapest. We get the best quality. We got the best product. Do any of them say we're the 7th best? Probably not, right? So how are you going to stand out? It's simply this. The ones who will own this market are simply the ones who learn, notice I said learn, how to best communicate with their prospects. The ones who know what to say and what to ask that will cause the prospect to want to open up, to want to engage, and actually go below the surface, because that is where the sale is made. So today I'm going to show you 3 things. We're going to spend, I think we've got 3 hours together. It's more like a kind of a, not keynote, but more / workshop. So today we're going to spend 3 hours uncovering these 3 things. So how do you become the trusted authority in the prospect's mind? Number 1, we're going to learn what's called problem finding. How to become a problem finder and problem solver, not a product pusher. Product pushers do not do well in our day and age. They play the numbers game. Number 2, how to ask the right questions, but at the right time in the conversation. And especially with the right tone. Because I want you to write this down. Your tone, your tonality, is how your prospect interprets the intention behind everything you say and ask. Your tonality is how the prospect interprets the meaning behind why you're even asking the question in the first place. We're going to focus a lot on that today. And then number 3, I would say the most important, is eliminating sales resistance so your prospects let their guard down. So how do we get them to actually let their guard down? Now raise your hand if you ask questions and a lot of your prospects give you vague, generalized, surface level answers. Raise your hand if that ever happens to you. Okay, but why? We're going to focus on what causes them to do that and how to eliminate that so they don't feel like they need to be surface level with you. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story for a couple minutes because my story relates to what is necessary if you want to take your sales ability to a level that most people don't even think they can get to. So I got started in selling 23 years ago as a broke, burned out college student, and I got my first job, because no one would obviously hire me with that experience, selling home security systems door to door. Raise your hand if you've ever sold door to door. Okay, so I know who my people are. Now, as you know, the company will give you a script. They'll give you a couple books. They'll read these books by the sales gurus. They'll drive you out in the van. Everybody remember the van? And they basically kick you out of the van and they say, hey, go make some sales. It'll be easy. We'll pick you up after dark. You remember? Okay. Now, I still remember, as the last one dropped off, the last block, I still remember looking back at my sales manager. His name was Xane. He had this curly blonde hair. He was like one of those surfer guys. And he said, yo, Miner, remember, when you knock on the door, show them how excited you are about the product. Show them your enthusiasm. Show them that you believe in it, and they're going to believe in it. And I was like, that makes sense. If I show them how excited I am about it, if I show them I believe in the product, then somehow, magically, they're going to believe in it too. I mean, what did I know? I was 21 years old. So I started knocking on the doors. I was really excited. And I started talking about the features and the benefits and how we had the best this and how we had the best that. And I was really enthusiastic. And I started noticing from the very first door, I was getting all these objections. What? They didn't tell me about that. We don't need it. Your price is too high. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. I don't have the budget for it. We've already talked with somebody from your company. I need to do more research. I need to keep looking around. I need to talk to my spouse. I need to think it over. Can you call me back in a week, a month, a year later? Raise your hand if you ever get any of those objections. Some of you don't get any objections in here. Masterful. How do you do it? So I finally got to a point about, let's say 7-8 weeks in, barely making any sales. Now for my door-to-door people, when you don't make any sales, how much money do you get paid? Oh, 0 bagels because it's straight commission, right? You don't get these big bases or anything. So 7 to 8 weeks in, I barely made any sales, barely made any money. I remember standing on a curb one late Friday evening, had worked 12 hours that day, had sweat just rolling down my chest. If any of you sold door to door in the summer, you know what it's like. Your legs just feel like jello after walking like 12 to 13 hours, knocking on these crazy doors. You're all by yourself. I had made 0 sales for that day, so I made $0. In fact, that entire week I had made 0 sales, so I'd made $0, and I'd worked 63 hours. And I thought to myself, maybe selling just wasn't for me. I wasn't born a natural salesperson like all those other people were. I didn't have the gift of the gab like everybody else did. Maybe I should just quit. Have you ever felt that way yourself? Have you ever noticed that you had more money going out of your bank account than you had coming in? Well, that's where I was at. So when my sales manager, Xane, picked us up that night, he popped in a Tony Robbins CD, completely changed everything I ever thought about skill development. And 22 years ago, yes, they used to listen to these round things called CDs. It's like a miracle. Now, Tony said something, and I might be butchering it, so forgive me, Father, here. But Tony said something like this. He said, "You will fail for the simple reason you don't learn the right skills necessary to succeed. You will fail if you don't learn the right skills. The right skills." He actually went on to say everyone is taught skills. But he said there is a difference in skill in anything you do. That there are some skills that are, let's say, far more advanced and more effective than other skills. So I committed to myself that I'm going to have to learn how to do this because working 63 hours a week and making $0 is probably not going to work out for me. Because I know you, like me, want to provide a great lifestyle for your family. That's why you are here today. That's why you're employed with Miracle Ear. You want to help people, don't you? I can see that. Now, how did I do that? So at the same time, like Jared was saying, my major was behavioral science and human psychology, which is the study of the brain and how and why human beings make decisions. What causes a person to say no compared to somebody saying yes? What is triggered in your brain to do that? Now, as a salesperson, would we possibly just maybe want to have an understanding of how that works in decision making with our brains when we're talking to people? Yes. And here was my dilemma. See, I was being taught by my professors that the most persuasive way to communicate was over here. But the sales gurus and all the training programs I was going through, they were saying it was over here. We're talking about exact opposite ways of thinking. So I thought to myself, how do I take what I'm learning about the brain and how do I learn the right questions to ask? How do I learn how to use my body language? How do I learn how to use my tonality that would work with human behavior, that would cause my prospects to actually do all the work rather than me doing all the work? That would cause my prospects to sell themselves rather than me trying to convince and sell them, because who wants to do that? That would cause my prospects to overcome their own objections rather than me throwing out rebuttals that very rarely work, and that would cause my prospects to pull me in rather than push and pressure. Because I know you don't like doing that. You don't like when salespeople do that to you, right? When I started to learn that, overnight practically, selling became very, very easy and exceptionally profitable. Now, why did I just tell you my story? Because none of you in here give a damn about my story. You only care about whose story? Your own story. You're a human being. That's just human behavior 101. See, I told you that because I'm not anyone famous. In fact, I'm just like you. I'm just a person who very early on decided that if I wanted to live a lifestyle that was greater than most people, that I was not going to be able to follow the status quo of what everybody else was doing. And as a salesperson, if I wanted to sell far more than everybody else, I couldn't do what? Use traditional selling techniques like everybody else was doing. See, there's a difference in skill level. So how do we do that? Let's go back to that thing about people are born salespeople, because this is one thing we all have to understand. I wasn't born out of my mother's womb with advanced questioning skills? Raise your hand if you're born out of your mother's womb with advanced questioning skills. Oh, nobody. What? Oh, back there. See, I wasn't born out of my mother's womb with advanced tonality skills. Raise your hand if you're born with advanced tonality skills. Nobody? And unfortunately for me, I wasn't born with advanced objection handling and objection prevention skills. Raise your hand if you're born with advanced objection handling and prevention skills. Nick here. See, I had to learn those skills. I had to acquire those skills. So when you hear someone say, oh, they're just a natural born salespeople, what does that mean? That's a myth. Can anybody tell me some scientific data that shows your DNA when you come out, that shows you're a natural born closer? I haven't seen it. So if a kid who grew up in the middle of Missouri on a cattle ranch outside of a town with less than 800 people can acquire those skills, what does that mean for you? That means you can acquire the same skills too. You can sell 2, 3, 5 times what you're doing now, even if you're already doing well, once you actually commit to acquiring a much more advanced sales ability than what you currently possess. Now, like I said, how are we going to do this? Step number 1, because it's all talk until we do what? We learn the skills, okay? Now, are you going to be able to master persuasion and human behavior in a 3-hour seminar? Well, let me know if you can. But this is the start of that, right? Okay, so step number 1, how do we become a problem finder and problem solver, not a product pusher? Now, let's go back. And I'm going to ask you this question here. I'm going to have you write some things down. Do your prospects you talk to, raise your hand if they have problems? Okay, everybody better be raising their hand on this one. Now raise your hand if they have emotional needs. Okay, see, there's never been a product or service ever invented that doesn't solve a problem and or an emotional need. Who in here likes, really expensive sports cars? Raise your hand. Okay, like a Ferrari. Does a $500,000 Ferrari solve a problem? Not really, unless you're a race car driver, right? Because if you want to go from point A to point B, you can drive like a 2001 used Honda. But it does solve what? An emotional need, higher status. Maybe you drive down the neighborhood and you sell that, Dr. Jones has got the new Ferrari, so you want to keep up. You want to show them that you're successful as well. Maybe as a kid you were bullied in high school and you want to show your peers that you've arrived, you're successful. Maybe your dad told you you wouldn't amount to anything. And now that car represents success for you. It builds status. See, your industry, the great thing about it is you solve problems and emotional needs. Now, the thing we have to learn, though, is how to get the prospects to actually want to open up and tell you, rather than staying surface level. That's the game changer. Now, so I want you to write, here's what I want you to do. Take a pen and a piece of paper. I'm going to give you 1 minute, and I want you to write down the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. Now, I'm going to come around and ask some of you, so you might want to be ready, or you might want to take a bathroom break for 2 minutes. Okay, so write down the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. Write down I'm very sarcastic. Write down the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have the money for what you're offering. That's not a problem that you solve necessarily. So what are the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have? Write down the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. Now, if you see me wipe away tears, I do love you. I'm not crying the whole time. I have dry eye syndrome. So I don't wipe around, I'll just start crying the whole time. So write down the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. And then I'm going to come around and ask you, what are the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have? 2 biggest problems. I should have asked you the 10 biggest problems, but we'll keep it to 2. 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. Everybody should know these, for sure. Can somebody give me a problem that you wrote down? What about you? Yes, go ahead, sir.
Can't hear.
Well, they can't hear, right? Okay, that's good. What's that?
Can't hear their family.
You can't hear their family, right? That's a problem and probably an emotional need. Yeah, to hear the family. Okay, that's a big problem, right? Somebody else. What's another? Yes, sir.
It boils down to they're losing their identity
Yes.
to themselves and their family.
See, that's even deeper. I like that. They're losing their whole self-identity, right? They don't know exactly. Yes?
Can't participate in the activities they love and enjoy.
That's a huge problem. Yes, sir.
My family's
on my case all the time because I can't hear them.
Yeah, maybe the spouse can't, they're upset, they're not listening, right? Yes, sir.
I feel isolated a little.
Yes. That's a big emotional need. See, we're starting to think here, okay? Now, I want you to raise your hand. So look at the two problems you just wrote down. And those were excellent, by the way. Look at the problems you just wrote down. I want you to raise your hand if your solution solves all of those. Raise your hand. I'm assuming you should all raise your hand on this one. Yes? Yes. Does your solution solve those two problems? It should be, right? That's why Miracle Ear has a company. Now, here's the question you have to ask yourself, though. Because what I think I heard all of you just say is that your prospects have problems and or emotional needs, and your solution solves those. Would we be right? So if your prospects have problems and your solution solves those, why are so many not buying from you? What's the missing link? Problems, you can solve it. Seems like a good match. Why are they not buying? Okay, we're getting there. This is good. Now, let me go back. The missing link is not your prospects. All the people I talk to, they just don't have any money. They're just bad leads. The money exists. It's not like they don't have the money. Unless you're selling a $25 million solution to somebody that's homeless, they have the money or they can find the money, right? See, they're already currently spending that same money you're asking for on something else. Something else is more of a priority in their mind of where they're currently spending that money. So how do we reframe their way of thinking and take where they're currently spending that money and move it over to now where your solution is the number one priority? Raise your hand if you want to start learning that today. Okay, we're going to talk about reframing. It's not your mindset. It's not that you don't journal enough. It's not that you don't take enough cold showers. It's not that you don't meditate enough in the jungles of Brazil. And I love all that stuff. But when the prospect says hello, if you don't know what to say or ask or how to use your tone to get them to let their guard down, all those cold showers are not going to really help you sell more. It's not that you don't read enough personal development. I love personal development. How does that help you sell more, though? You know the biggest question that people ask me when I come, I only do 2 of these keynotes a month. The reason why is because I don't want to be on the road all the time. Okay, we usually turn down 10 to 15 speaking engagements a month. The biggest question that salespeople ask me is, Jeremy, you might be asking yourself this, how do I increase my confidence level? Would that be a question you might have asked yourself? How do I increase my confidence level in sales? You ever asked that yourself? How do I increase my confidence level? The only answer I could ever give you is you're going to have to increase your skill level. That's it. How can you increase your confidence level if your skill level's down here? Can you imagine asking a neurosurgeon, how do you increase your confidence level, but their skill level is down here? See, you can get pumped up by a bunch of self-help books, which I love. But when you start getting rejected and you start getting a lot of objections, where does that confidence level go? Back down to where your skill level is. So when you increase your skill level, where does your confidence level go? It goes there. When you increase it more, it goes there. Because it's all pertaining on how many sales and how many people you help. That increases your confidence. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's what we're going to focus on. Now, it's also not that you're not motivated. Raise your hand if you're motivated. I'm assuming you're all here. You're motivated, right? That's why you came here. And it's definitely not, they don't work hard enough. Raise your hand if you work hard. Okay, every hand I just saw raised their hand here because your bosses are probably somewhere in the back, so you had to raise your hand on that one. Okay, so if it's not, you all work hard. So if it's none of those things, well, what could it be? Now, can I ask you a really cheesy question? I already know what answer you're going to give me. Raise your hand if you want to triple the sales you did last year this year. You want to triple the amount of sales or the up sales or the cross sales you did. A few of you don't. They're like, I want to increase it by 10%. Okay, so you all want to do that. Now, keep your hand raised. Everybody that raise your hand, keep your hand raised. Because I have to ask you this. Keep your hand raised if you can triple your working hours. 2 people, you can triple your working hours? So look, you already work 8 to 10 hours a day. Are you going to work 24 to 30. That's not even possible. So how are you going to triple your sales if you can't triple your working hours? What are you going to do? You have to triple your skill level. Are you with me with where we're going? Okay? All right. Now, who in here likes to read books? Okay. One of the first sales seminars I ever went to was with my good friend Brian Tracy. Raise your hand if you've ever read a book by Brian Tracy. Great guy, really good friends with him now. And Brian told me something there at the Salt Lake City, I think it was the Salt Lake City Convention Center at the end of the summer of 2001. And he said, use your vehicle as a university on wheels. And so from that day forward, I turned off the radio, I turned off the political talk shows and Sports Center, all the things that I used to listen to. And I started listening or reading 5 books or 5 training programs a month times 12 months a year on sales, persuasion, and influence times the past 23 years. So if I did my math right, that's 1,388 books or training programs on sales, persuasion, and influence. Now, in every single one of those books, there's 3 things that you always hear when you read them, or training programs that you go through. What do you hear? Sales is a numbers game. That's always in every book. ABCs of closing. You've all heard that. And you have to be a problem solver. Those are the things you hear in every single book or every training program you've ever gone through. Now, as you really look at what problem solving means, how can you be a problem solver if the prospect doesn't buy from you? Tell me how that works. Can you be a problem solver if they don't buy? No, because you're not solving anything. So if you want to sell more, because problem solving happens after they buy, after they have the hearing aids, after you solve the problem, that's when you're a problem solver. So if you want to sell a lot more, you got to be a lot better at what we call problem finding. So write that down. Now, what is problem finding? I think we all understand. When we first start talking to our prospects, most of them don't really understand what their real problems are. Would we be right? Rather than I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yes.
Okay? That's very surface level. Or maybe they understand they have a problem, having a hard time hearing, but they don't understand the depth of that problem. They don't understand how bad that problem really is, and they especially don't understand the consequences of what happens if they don't do anything about solving the problem. Are you with me on that? Because if we can't help them through our questioning and tonality build a gap from where they are to now where they can see they can be, they feel no urgency to what? Change. And when they feel no urgency to change, you get what?
Nothing.
Objections, which lead to what? Them not buying. You see how this is all interrelated here. Now let's keep going on. Now, what are most salespeople? Now, this is not your fault, but it is your what? It is your problem. Most salespeople have been trained to be what we call product pushers. We've been trained to ask a few logical-based questions. Can you tell me what problems you're having with your hearing? They tell you a couple problems, and you say, how is that affecting you? And they probably give you vague, surface-level answers. And then you do what? You go into your sales pitch, talking about the features and the benefits and how you can do this and how you can do that. That is like taking a bucket of mud and throwing it up against the wall, hoping and praying that something you're saying is going to magically cause that prospect to want to buy from you. We call that hopium. It's a drug that so many salespeople take, where you just hope and pray that slide number 15 is going to magically show them all the great things about you and they're going to magically buy. So if you want to be a top 1% earner, a top 1% salesperson in your industry, you got to stop taking the hopium drugs. Okay? That is a very hard and unpredictable way to make a living as a salesperson. Now, step number 2, and we're going to start getting into some industry-specific stuff with you guys. Asking the right questions, but at the right time in the conversation. Now, let's go back to where I was at. Remember, I was in college, major in behavioral science, human psychology, study of the brain, how and why human beings make decisions, how and why a person is persuaded to do something and or not do something. So check this out. According to behavioral science, there are 3 forms of communication. Now, I'd suggest that you might want to write these down. Because once you understand the differences in persuasion and where you are now, even if you're already doing good, compared to where you could be, everything will change for you. So error number one, the first mode of selling. I'm not going to give you the scientific term for it, you'd get bored. But if I said the words, boiler room selling, what's the first image that comes to your mind? If I said the words boiler room selling, what's the first image that you just thought of?
A bunch of people pounding the phone.
Yes? Would it be something like this? Wolf on Wall Street, hey, I got a great opportunity for you. And we talk about the features and the benefits and how we have the best this and we have the best that. But according to the data, the pesky data, those facts, we are the least persuasive when we sell that way. Hence, sales is a numbers game. Okay, you're starting to correlate that. Okay, so we're the least persuasive when we tell people things, when we attempt to dominate them. Even if you know everything there is to know about the technology you're selling, the hearing aids, that is the least persuasive way to sell. Because human beings do not buy logically. They make decisions what? Emotionally. You can be the greatest expert on hearing aids and it's going one ear out the other. Have you ever noticed that? So we attempt to dominate them, we attempt to posture them, maybe we attempt to manipulate them, or even worse, we push or pressure them. According to the data, we are the least persuasive when we sell that way. Now I'm going to give you a few examples of the least persuasive way to sell. Okay, now don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger here. Presenting. Now you have to have a presentation of some sorts, hearing tests and stuff. But we've all been taught we have to have a great presentation. Okay, we show them the slide deck. Some industries do, some don't. We'll talk about that. Here's a picture of our corporate offices. Here's a picture of our JD Customer Service Awards. Here's our pictures of our AAA rating with the Better Business Bureau. Here's a picture of our founders. They've got the most integrity. Here's a picture of this, and on and on and on. We've got the number one this. We've got the number one that. Once again, how many salespeople do you know that have tried to sell you something that came up to you and you're like, yeah, we're the 17th best in the market? Anybody? No, they all say the what? We're the best. We're number one. Even if you are number one, I hate to tell you, your prospects don't believe you. Why don't they believe you? Why do they lose trust when you say things like that? Anybody ever watch like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette? The television show? Some of the guys, you can raise your hand. Nobody's raising their hand. They're like, I'm not confessing. Okay, he's okay. So every season they come on and the announcer says what? This is the most dramatic season ever. And you start to think what?
What's going to happen?
Oh, come on. They've said that for 23 years straight. Would we be right? Okay. So when we say, now that doesn't mean you come out and say, well, we're actually not that good. You're not going to say anything like that, okay? You don't want to go from like up here to all the way down here, okay? I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, okay? But the reason why your prospects actually trust you less when you say things like that, or if you talk down about your competitors, is because they're used to every salesperson doing what? Selling the same thing. So every salesperson's ever sold them anything from a vacuum cleaner to a car, to a life insurance policy, to cybersecurity for their office, to hearing aids, to anything, is all saying the same thing. So what category are your prospects automatically putting you in when you sound like everybody else selling them something? The same category they put all the other salespeople, lower status. So how are we going to change that? Now, don't get me wrong, you have to have a presentation. Typically, now we train, just so you're aware, we train at 7th level 161 different industries, okay, including yours. In every industry, the data shows us the average salesperson presents about 50% of the time. That means you're talking half of the time. We have to get that down to around 10%. That is a whole nother training in itself. Okay, what about telling your story? When you're selling one-to-one, I hate to tell you, nobody cares about your story. They only care about whose story? Their own story. What about putting sales pressure on them? Who's guilty? Okay, you might not think you're guilty. Okay, there is a massive difference, and I'm going to show you a lot of this on the whiteboard today. There's a massive difference to getting your prospects to feel so much internal tension from your questioning ability and how you use your tone that causes them to feel they might have much bigger problems than they thought they had compared to you putting external sales pressure on them. And I will show you the difference today with some of the tweaks that I've just done, okay? And then here's the big one, if we can get to the big one. Some of you are going to get upset with me when I say this. Assuming the sale. What? We've all been taught to assume the sale. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to assume the sale after we build more trust and build a bigger gap. But especially if we start assuming the sale from the first moments of that conversation, okay? And it's exactly why most of the sales trainers you might have learned from say what? Sales is a numbers game. Basically, what they just told you is, hey, what I'm training you doesn't really work that well. So unfortunately for you, you're just going to have to work harder. You're just going to have to do more. You're going to have to put in more hours. You're going to have to be dedicated. You're going to have to motivate yourself. Raw. You're going to have to call more leads. You're going to have to go through rejection. You're going to get thick skin. How selfish of them. How does that give you any competitive advantage? Are you just going to work an hour longer than anybody else? Is that what it's all about? Okay? It will be a numbers game if we use traditional selling skills that trigger the prospect to go into fight or flight mode. We'll go over that later. Now, error number 2, this is more known as consultative selling. Okay? Now, this came out in the late 70s and early 80s with methodology like Sandler Institute, books like Spin Selling, Neil Rackham, college professor. Never sold anything, by the way. And they taught that you needed to ask logical-based questions to find the needs of the client. Now that was revolutionary in the 80s compared to boiler room selling. But what's a potential downfall when we only ask logical-based, we call those surface-level questions? What type of answers are our prospects going to give us in return? Logical-based, surface-level answers. And once again, do human beings make buying decisions on emotion or logic? It's 100% emotion, then they justify logic. Do you want me to show you? I feel like a drink of water. Every decision you make starts with your emotional side of your brain. I feel like coming down here on the floor right now so I can be closer to you. See, my decision started with my emotional side, feeling side, and then I justify with logic. I feel like I drink of water because I'm thirsty. I feel like because of, okay? I feel like getting these hearing aids so I can hear better. Every decision your prospects make starts with their emotional side of their brain. Now, if you're having a hard time getting your prospects to emotionally open up, the question you would want to ask us is, Jeremy, I'm not quite sure how to get my prospects to want to open up to me and actually tell me how not being able to hear is affecting them personally. Can you teach me how to do that? Because every prospect you talk to, it doesn't matter if they're hardcore A-core personality, is what? They're a human being. And they make decisions emotionally. Did you know if you get in a car wreck and your emotional side of your brain is damaged, you can't even decide you want to go to the bathroom? You can't decide if you want to eat? You can't decide anything. You are a vegetable. Okay? All right, now, so we're more persuasive when we have this discussion. And this is why I always say this. You can never sell to just the needs of the client. Let me repeat that. It sounds counterintuitive. You can never sell to just the needs of the client. And why? Because most of your prospects don't really know what they need when they first start talking to you. Would we be right? Okay, let me give you an example. Now this is for illustrative purposes only. This is not going to happen to any of you tomorrow. Let's say you wake up tomorrow and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got this killer headache. I've got a migraine. It hurts so bad. I need to go to urgent care to get some medication because that's what you think you need, right? So you're like, okay, what's going to be my copay? Maybe it's going to cost me $100. That's your budget? Then you go to the doctor and she starts asking you some very pointed questions about the pain and where you feel the pain at and what the pain feels like and what the pain's preventing you from being able to do and other questions. And her questions suddenly start to get you to feel what? Internal tension that you might have much bigger problems than you originally thought you had. She then suggests that you go get a CAT scan on your brain. It comes back that you have a tumor. Not only that, it's terminal. You've got 2 weeks to live, and the solution to solve that is a $2 million surgery. Your insurance covers 90% of it, leaving you with now a $200,000 budget. Well, the hell with the $100 budget. You thought you only needed that. If she didn't ask you those questions, you might have actually died. But her questions caused you to feel like you had more problems than you thought. So it opened you up emotionally. Now you know what the budget is, so you go out and do the budget. That is why I always say you can never sell to just the needs of the client. You have to sell to the real problems your questioning and tonality ability allow them to find that they didn't understand they have. Now, let's keep moving on. The third mode of selling. We are, according to behavioral science, we're the most persuasive when we allow others to persuade themselves. Okay? Now, that is called dialogue when we ask what are called neuro-emotional persuasion questions. Now, the question is, how do you get a prospect to actually persuade themselves? That's the $1 trillion question. Raise your hand if you want to start acquiring that skill. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few consultative questions. See, lots of, like I said, we train 161 different industries. So I see scripts, our sales trainers in our boardroom every single day from pretty much every industry on the planet, including yours. And I'm going to show you a few consultative surface level questions you might want to stay away from. Okay, and then I'm going to show you a couple of tweaks. Now the tweaks I'm going to start showing you today, realize this. I think I met with Jared, for 45 minutes? So these are based off our 45-minute discussion. Now we might, for rumor has it, we might be working out some type of training deal with some of you guys with Miracle Ear. If that's the case, for the next 12 to 24 months, these questions will get a lot more zoned and honed in once I have more time with you, okay? All right, let's look. How many of you asked, hey, what motivated you to come in today? That's not a bad question. But typically, unless they're a lay down, they're going to give you some short answers, right? My wife said I just can't hear well. Anything, you ask that question, you get kind of, I'm just trying to check out and see what you guys have. Or, I just thought I'd see if I, needed a hearing test. My spouse said that, I'm just not hearing her very well. Anybody ever get those type of answers from that type of question? Okay. Now, when we ask surface level questions that are kind of more vague and generalized, what answers should we expect? More surface level, vague, generalized answers. So I've got to hone that in, okay? Now, let's say that they had called in your office assistant. See, like I said, for different places, it's a little bit different. Let's say they'd called in to the office, they had scheduled an appointment. Most of you are hearing coordinators, from what I understand. And we have an accountant somewhere back here. Yes, the accountant back there, okay? So I want to be more specific. So hey, when you were talking with Bill, what was it that you guys went over that caused you to want to look into this further? Let me do that again. Hey, so when you were talking with Tiffany, what was it that you guys went over that caused you to want to look into this further? Now, why did I kind of slow that down? What is that actually called? Can I move this up here a little bit so you guys can see it? Who in here follows me anywhere on social media? Raise your hand if you follow me anywhere. Oh, just a few of you. That could be trouble for you guys. Okay, so if you follow me on IG or anything, you're going to notice in my background, I always do a lot of reels. We do about 200 reels a month. These are just free reels. These are, this is separate from like our client training. But you're going to see this big electronic board in the background called a vibe board, all right? I love vibe boards. So what I just did there, that is an example of what's called verbal pacing. Do you know what the number one reason is that your prospects give you vague, generalized, surface level answers? Because you ask the questions too fast. And when you ask questions too fast, they have no time to internalize what you just asked. I'll give you an example. Let's say you walk into a retail store, your jeans just ripped, you've got to go to some birthday party, you've got to buy a pair of jeans. You're in the market for a new pair of jeans, and you walk in and the salesperson says, hey, welcome into the store, how can I help you? And you say what? Just looking. Knee-jerk question asked too fast is going to get a knee-jerk answer. You see how you're triggering that. So if I verbal pace this out, so hey, when you were talking with Tiffany, what was it that you guys went over that caused you to, want to look into this further? See, I'm pacing that out. I'm pacing the question out. That causes the prospect to internalize what I'm asking and give me more of an below the surface answer. And I'm going to show you a lot more than just that. Are you having any ear pain? Who asked this question? Some of you. It's okay. Hey, this is a safe place. It's a safe place. We're not going to post this on IG or Facebook because it's a safe place. It's okay to raise your hand. So instead of asking that question, because if I ask that question, where does their brain go? It goes to a yes or no answer. You're causing them to say yes or no. But if I relanguage that and say, what type of pain are you possibly feeling in your ear? Now, where does their brain go now? Not are they having pain, but what type of pain? Do you see how I can control how the prospect starts to think? Now that might have, okay, some of you I can see by your facial expressions, I lost a few of you there. You look like you're like the deer running out in the road, the headlights on, like at the big super 18-wheeler about to run over you that way. So if I ask them, are you having any ear pain? Where does your brain go? Are you having any ear pain? You go yes or no. But if I say, and hear my tonality, what type of ear pain are you possibly having? Now where does your brain go? To what type, not are you. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be like, oh, they're going to make up pain if they don't have any, but it gets them to think what? Deeper about the question I asked. And when they think deeper, they go below the surface. You see what we're talking about here? Okay, I'm going to show you a lot more examples. All right, what about this one? Now, what type of tone did I use there? What type of pain are you possibly feeling in your ear? Concern tone. Why would I want to use a concern tone? Why not do it a curious tone? Wait, what type of pain are you possibly feeling in your ear? Why use a concern tone? Remember, yes, your tone is how the prospect interprets the intention behind every question you ask. Can I show you the difference in this? All right, let me have somebody stand up real quick. Who am I going to pick? Let's see. How about you? Are you an accountant, though?
No.
Hearing specialist?
Yes.
Can you stand up for a second? Now, let's say you're my teenage daughter. Raise your hand if you got teenagers. I got teenagers, too. I got 3 teenage daughters. Heart attack. Heart attack. Okay. You got kids?
5.
Okay. So have they ever done something like really bad where you're like really angry, like they did something really horrible, or you just have the perfect angel kids?
I don't think anybody has perfect kids.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
So you kids do something really, really bad. Let's say they went to jail. They were speeding. They were going 96 in a 65. And they got booked in jail. They're like, Dad, Mom, please come save me. And you come in there and you're all upset and you're like this. Why would you do something like that? Now, how would they interpret my tone and my body language? What would they do right then and there? What would they do? Why would you do something like that? They would get what? Somebody said it. They would get defensive. Dad, you don't understand. But I'm going to say the same words now, and I'm going to change my tonality and my body language and tell me what it communicates. Why would you do something like that?
I don't know.
Now what would our teenagers do then? What did I just communicate? That I'm concerned. I'm disappointed, but I love you. I'm concerned. And now the whole trajectory of that conversation goes where? They let their guard down. Do you see how your tonality affects everything when you're talking with your prospects? Thank you. Well done. Okay. How about this one? Do any of you ever ask them like what their budget is in the first 5 to 10 minutes? Hey, what's your budget for this type of thing? Now, I understand why you might ask that. But how would they know what their budget should be that early in a conversation when they don't even really know what their real problems are yet? How? Now, that doesn't mean that if they give you like words like, is this going to cost me anything because it got $50 to my name, that you don't want to financially qualify. But if we ask questions like that too early in a conversation before we built a gap from where they are to where they want to be, they have nothing to compare that with, so they're just going to throw out a number. They don't know what, it's like the person with the migraine that thinks they need a $100 budget, and when they find out what the real problems are, they now realize they need a $200,000 budget. Do you see the difference in that? Okay. Now, I want to stay away from words like budget. Why would I want to stay away from the word budget when I'm talking about money they have to pay? What does budget imply? A limit. So I'm automatically putting them into, you have a limit that you can't go over way of thinking. Is that what we want to do? No. So I'd rather use what type of funds do you have? It's more neutral, okay? With your industry, I wouldn't use funding, I'd use like funds. What type of funds do you have to put into this so you can get your hearing back for your spouse? What type of funds do you have to put into this so you can actually get your job back and get promoted because now you can hear? What am I doing? I'm associating them getting the funds with what? Them getting what they said they wanted. If they can get the funds, they get what they want. If they can't get the funds, they don't get what they want. See how I'm getting them into what we call results-based thinking over price or cost-based thinking. How many of you have prospects that say, this is just too expensive or your prices are too high? Raise your hand. Okay, that's because we haven't learned yet how to take them from price or cost-based thinking into results-based thinking. I'm going to show you some examples on how to do that today from the very first words out of your mouth. Okay, let's keep going here. All right, so we've already went through this. So dialogue, most persuasive when we allow others to persuade themselves, neuro-emotional persuasion questions. Now, one thing I want to show you before we get into some more questions, something we all have to realize with the way the brain works. Within the first, actually it's about 5 seconds. Within the first 5 to 12 seconds of any conversation you're ever going to be in with the prospect, they are picking up on social cues from you. So they are picking up, subconsciously we can't help it, it's how God wired our DNA somehow. We can't help it, but you're picking up on your verbal and nonverbal cues from the very first few seconds. Each of you did that with me when I walked up on the stage, didn't you? You started to make a judgment about me literally within the first 5 seconds of me coming up on the stage. That's what your prospects are doing that as well. They can't help it subconsciously. So when you come across too aggressive, now what I mean by that is too excited. Now I don't mean be boring. There is a mid-ground. I don't mean to be timid. I don't mean to be boring, but we have to be more in the middle. So when you come across too excited, when you come across, I would say, let's go back here. Yeah. When you come across needy, has anybody ever talked to a prospect and you can feel the neediness? When they throw out an objection, you try to respond? We've all been guilty of that. If you're feeling that, what do you feel like the prospect is feeling? And especially when we come across attached, and we don't understand the questions to ask, we don't understand yet how to use our tone, it triggers your prospects to go into this fight or flight mode. How many of you ever start asking questions, you feel like it's going good, and all of a sudden they just stop you and they're like, hey, I appreciate the questions, but can you just tell me how much it's going to cost, and I can tell you if I'm interested? Has anybody ever got a prospect to do that? Now, I want to ask you this. Did that prospect wake up that morning before they had the appointment with you? Do they wake up and think that when they meet with you at 3:30, because your tone sounds a little bit needy and you're a little bit too attached, and when you ask that 7th question, they feel a little bit interrogated, they're just going to go into fight or flight mode and say all that to you? Did they plan that out? No, that's a reaction. That is something that we are triggering on our end. So once we learn how to not trigger resistance, by default, what do we start to do? we start to make more sales. Because is it harder if we trigger sales resistance and the prospect is guarded the entire conversation, or if their guard's down the entire conversation? Which one is harder to make the sale? We all know that, right? We don't want the Great Wall of China right here. Okay, we want them to let their guard down. Now, once we learn how to come across more neutral. Now, what I mean by neutral is more coming across more unbiased, okay? Like, you're not quite sure you can help yet. You're not saying those words, but it's how you're coming across. You don't know enough about their hearing to understand what you could even do for them, if anything, yet. Now, do we realize we can pretty much help everybody that comes in the door or responds? Obviously, yes. Do they realize that in the first 30 seconds of a conversation? No, because you don't have hardly any trust or credibility, even if your brand is as big as your brand is, okay? One of our clients is Google Ads. Google AdWords, the search engine. We trained 4 of their biggest divisions. And their salespeople used to think that if they said they were with Google when they called outbound leads, that somehow magically people would just like let their guard down and be like, where do I buy? But nothing could be further from the truth. Okay? All right, so when we come across more calm. Now what I mean by calm is you're more collective. That still means you're assertive. Like I'm talking right now, I'm assertive, but I'm not too excited. More of an expert, more of a trusted authority. Especially when we learn how to become across more detached. What that does is it causes their brain to become curious enough where they actually want to engage and they feel comfortable opening up to you. And that's what we're really going to focus on the rest of the time. All right, now, when I talk about NEPQ questions, I'm not referring to questions that are designed to get your prospects to say what you want them to say. Those are manipulative questions, and I hate to tell you this, your prospects can probably tell if you're trying to force them into a certain answer. Do you tell when a salesperson asks you a question where you can tell, obviously, if you answer a certain way, they're going to use it against you? Okay, we all know that, right? Okay, so I'm not talking about surface level questions either. So the questions I'm referring to are intended to bring out your prospects' emotions, to trigger what's called their, write this down, their emotional drivers, to get them into what we call their emotional state. Now the question is, how do you get a prospect to want to emotionally open up to you? Okay, these are the 5 stages of NEPQ. You can see some of that. So what I'm going to do here for the next, we got a couple hours left, or 2 hours and 15 minutes, is I'm going to give you some examples for your each stage based off my conversation with Jared for 45 minutes, okay? Now, we train 161 different industries. I think we might be doing some type of training after this or some type of deal with your franchisees. If that's the case, these questions I'm going to show you are going to get far more honed in because I'll have just, like I said, I'll have a lot more time to soak that in with you as long with our sales trainers as well. All right, let's start here. So the first thing I'm going to show you, and I want to ask you this question. How does society view salespeople at large? How does society and Hollywood view you and me, salespeople at large? High status or low status? Okay, so the question is, why do they view salespeople at a lower status?
They don't trust us.
Yes, because of the way we've been taught how to communicate to them. Because why wouldn't salespeople be considered high status? Because if nothing is sold, that means there is no economy. Society does not exist without you. So why are you not viewed at a higher status? Now in behavioral science, this is called social dynamics. Okay, I nerd out on this in college, still do. So how do we get your prospects to view you at a higher status than someone trying to sell them something? Now, I'm going to show you some predictable statements and questions that most salespeople in every industry, including yours, use. But here's my concern for you. If I show you these questions, it's really going to mess up, because I could show you hundreds of these. I could show you hundreds of statements that salespeople use that actually lower their status, and they have no idea. They think they're being polite. But my concern for you is if I show you these, when is the next time you're getting back in front of a prospect? When is the event over? Monday. So my concern is on Monday, you're going to go into the office, whether you call on the phone or whether you just take in, people coming into the store that have appointments, and you're going to be like, it's going to really mess up your mind because you're like, oh my gosh, I can't use that question I've used for the past 6 years because I'm lowering my status. So we have 2 choices today that we can do. I'm okay with either because I could always go gamble here in the casino. Here's the choices. We have to decide which pill we're going to take, okay? So, we can keep taking the blue pill, numbers game. We're going to keep taking the hoping drug, right? I hope and pray that somehow I'm going to make more sales this month. Somehow I'm going to make more sales this quarter. Somehow I'm going to make more sales this year. We can hope and pray it works out. But as my good friend Andy Andrews said once brilliantly, God feeds the birds, but he does not drop worms in their nest. God feeds the birds, but he doesn't drop worms in their nest. You got to do something. So we can keep taking the blue pill, hope it's going to work out, or we can take the red pill. Now, what's the blue pill? Numbers game. What's the red pill? Skills game. Which pill do you want to take? Skills game. Which is going to help more of your prospects solve their problems and get where they want? Skills game. Now, can you imagine? Raise your hand if you watch NBA, like the NBA basketball. Okay. Everybody knows Steph Curry. He's probably one of my favorites. Can you imagine if Steph Curry said, basketball, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. Just shoot it as many times as you can, and eventually it'll go in. Shoot it 30 times, you'll hit 1 out of them. Can you imagine if he said basketball was a numbers game? He wouldn't have never made his varsity basketball team, let alone the NBA. See, Steph knows that basketball is a what? A skills game. So why is he practicing on a skill every day? You ever notice he spends hours in the gym every day, even before the games, watching his technique, his elbows, his wrist movement, his elbow, is it lined up, his feet, everything. You see, top athletes, top coaches, top CEOs, top chief sales officers, top VPs of sales, top sales managers, top salespeople, top anyone know that everything they do is a skills game. That's why they're at the top, right? Average athletes, average coaches, average CEOs, average companies, average sales managers, average chief sales officers, average VPs of sales, average salespeople, they're still focused on the numbers game. And that's why they're still, what? Average. It's all in our skills game. When you ask questions like this, and I know that you've been taught like this, your mom taught you to ask these type of questions. We love mom. But at the beginning of a conversation, if you say, hey, how are you doing today? How's your day going? How's the weather over there? Oh, the weather's horrible. Did you see the game last night? Because these are questions that we are taught that do what? Build rapport. But do you know what the average prospect interprets predictable questions like this as? This. It's the same way you think of when salespeople ask you this question that you don't know. You think of this. I'm just trying to get you to like me so I can sell you my product, my service, my thing. Would I be right? When a salesperson asks you, hey, how's your day going? You don't believe genuinely that they are really interested in how your day's going. Would I be right? Okay? So why do you feel like your prospects believe you genuinely are really interested in their day? Now, I've had some people like, no, Jeremy, you don't understand. I am really interested in all of my prospects' days. I would be highly suspicious if you are. But even if you say you are, your prospects don't believe you. Most of them, unless they're lay-down sales. Why do they not believe you? Because every salesperson that's ever tried to sell them anything is asking what predictable questions? The same ones. And so when you ask those questions, what gets triggered in their brain? Salesperson trying to get me to like them, and you instantly go where? Surface level. just by that one question. You probably never thought about that. Now I'll show you how to reword that. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you a few things that you might be doing that lower your status, and then I'm going to show you how to tweak those to actually raise your status. How do we have situational status in our prospect's mind? When prospects come in, so when your potential customers come in, and you say things like that, I really appreciate your taking the time to come down. I really appreciate you taking the time with your busy schedule to come down here and meet with us. You think you're being what? Polite. Because that's what your mom told you to do. But when you say words like, I appreciate you taking the time, that means you view them at a much higher status than how you view yourself. That means in their mind that their time should be respected, but not your time. You ever thought about that? Because who has the problems? You or the prospect? The prospect has the problems. So why are you qualifying to them? They should be qualifying to you. Now that doesn't mean we're going to be weird and be manipulative. But we can show you how to get the prospects to qualify to you because you're not the one that has the problems. Now you can solve the problems. So we have to start acting like that, okay? We don't want them to view our time as not as important as their time. Have you ever, who in here calls like outbound leads? Somebody that responds to an ad, maybe on social media, maybe on AdWords. Do you guys? I think you guys do some advertising like that. And you call back the lead, and they say, "Oh, hey, I'm really busy. I forgot about that. I'm so busy. Can you call me back later?" And you say what? Sure. When can I call you? Who just qualified to who? You just qualified to them. Now they view your time as not as important as their time. But who has the problems? They do. We got to flip that script, okay? So and they say like, yeah, hey, I'm really busy. Can you call me back later? Oh, sure. When can I call you back? What about Saturday night at 9:45 p.m.? Sure. And you just call them back whenever they say. And do you ever notice when you call them back that most of the time they don't answer? What? They just went MIA. So what I could do, I didn't put this on here, okay? But I could say, here, why don't we just role play this? We got lots of time here. Can you come up here with me real quick, sir? Now, are you an accountant?
No, I'm not.
Okay. We love you back there, accountants. Okay. So why don't you just tell me, pretend you're a prospect, you responded to an ad, whatever the ad said, and I call you back and you're like, hey, I'm too busy, can you call me back later? I want you to pay attention to what I do here and how I use my tone. Ready? Go ahead.
Sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm kind of busy.
And just say, can you call me back later?
Can you call me back later, maybe in a week from now?
Well,
Let me see if
There you go.
can you call me back later?
Yeah, call me back later. I'm kind of busy today, sorry.
Yeah, possibly. I'm not sure I'd randomly be available like that with my schedule. What I can do, if it helps you though, is I can give you my number, and you just have to call me back maybe a little bit later today to see if I'd be available for you. Would that help you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, yeah, just have to see if I'm available with my schedule. So here's my number, 573-555-654. Now, hey, what's your time frame on call me back later today just to see if I'm going to be in the office at that point?
You're making it hard on me to say no to you.
Well, you don't have to call back. Was there, what caused you to respond to the ad in the first place?
Oh, my wife's been mumbling for 3 years.
Well, I don't want you sleeping on the couch tonight, Bill, so do you want to call me back so she might be able to hear you?
Yeah, maybe we could do
Well, you
that.
could. Okay, now, hey, when you call, if I don't answer, can you leave me a text message? And because I might be with another client, and then I can just text you back and see when I'm going to be available. Would that work?
I suppose so.
Yeah, you'll have to do that for sure with my schedule. Now, once you do, what did I just do there? Can anybody tell me what I did?
made him start vying for your time.
Yeah, because who has the problems?
Yeah.
Yeah, not me.
But
Now you would
said to
be a
figure out
tough
what that
prospect.
was.
I like that. Now, what did I do there? There's a lot of things I just did there. So when he said, yeah, I'm busy, can you call me back later? Can you call me back next week? If I say yes, I just immediately did what? Lowered my status. So how do I raise my status? How do I appear that I'm really busy? I've got lots of clients. So obviously that means what? If I have lots of clients and I'm really busy, what would that mean? I must be really good at what I do. I've got higher status. You see what I'm doing there? Now, I don't do that in a mean way. Well, possibly. I'm not sure if I'd randomly be available like that with my schedule. What I can do, if it helps, is I can give you my number, and you'd have to call me back maybe a little bit later today or tomorrow to see if I'd be available for you. Now, when I said to see if I'd be available for you, what does that do to my status? Does that lower my status or raise my status? Raise, because I'm busy. I've got things going on with other clients, okay? Now notice he was still being hard, which that's totally fine. Typically that wouldn't happen if you use the right tone on a call, but that's besides the point. So he was still being hard. Well, possibly, well, you'd have to do that with my schedule. And then immediately, to see what I asked him? What caused you to respond to the ad, just so I understand? So I immediately got him into what? Remembering why he responded to the ad.
My wife forged my name on the ad.
Yeah, right? And did you see how it's kind of playful with him? Well, we don't want her getting angry at you. You're sleeping on the couch because you can't hear her. And use that playful tone? Why would I do that? Causes him to what? Let his guard down a little bit. I'm a human being. I'm a little bit playful, okay? Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Good job. You're a good prospect. All right. Now, that doesn't mean, so let's say that he says, now when I said, what's your time frame on getting back to me? I just imprinted what in his mind? Time frame. So now he thinks about that. So let's say he's like, I can call you back tomorrow around 2. Now, at 2 o'clock, if he doesn't call, because not everybody's just going to call at 2 o'clock. I'd say maybe 30% will call you back at 2. The other 70% are not going to call you back because they got busy, life got busy. So what am I going to do? I'm going to wait 2 or 3 minutes after 2 o'clock, and I'm going to call him. Do I want to call right at the top of the hour? No. You've all been taught, don't be late for your appointments. But in your prospect's mind, that causes them to view you as what? More lower status, because you obviously are waiting around to call him all day. I want to raise my status. That doesn't mean you're going to be an hour late or 25 minutes late. But if I call 2 minutes late, okay, it doesn't look like I'm so needy. See the difference in that? Everybody starting to make sense? Okay. Just randomly something came to my mind real quick. Okay, now let's keep going. Words that lower your status when you leave a voicemail. So let's say that you talked to a prospect, they came in, let's say 3 months ago, and they didn't buy. Does that ever happen to any of you? Or do you close 100%? Who's closed 100%? Oh, wait a minute, you've had one prospect you've talked to? Okay. Now, who in here calls those leads back? Maybe 3-4 months later to try to re-engage them. Okay? Does this look familiar? Maybe a little bit? Hey, Jim, it's Jeremy Miner. I know we talked a few weeks ago about kind of some of your hearing problems. You're looking at different hearing aids. Can you please call me back when you have time? Who in here says, can you please call me back when you have time? Thank you. Hey, that guy back there, he's always honest back there. Good job. Okay? But what does that do to my status? See, your mom taught you, my mom taught me, you've got to be nice to people. Say please and thank you. But in a business setting, is that raising your status when you say, can you please call me back when you have time? Is that raising your status or lowering your status? Why would it lower it? Yeah, because now they view that your time should not be respected like their time. See how those type of words that you thought were just like, hey, this is just normal part of conversation, are actually lowering your status and causing your prospects to view you as what? Salesperson trying to sell me something. So how do we flip that where they view us as the trusted authority who's going to solve my problems and get me where I need to be? See the differences on how you can be viewed. Higher status or lower status. Okay, let's keep going through this. Now, words that raise your status. Write these down or make sure you take pictures of these. Let's say you talk to this prospect and they gave you the old, I want to do more research or think it over objection because you don't know how to prevent that. So I'm going to show you a few things later today. Or you don't know how to help them overcome that. Okay? And so let's say you call them back a couple weeks. No, actually, let's do this. Let's say they said they wanted to think it over, talk to their spouse, and you set up a second appointment. Does that ever happen to some of you? Okay, I'm going to show you how to help prevent the spouse objection. Who in here loses sales to the spouse objection? even though the spouse probably going to go out on a limb, probably wants them to hear. I don't know, I'm just saying, right? So how do we prevent that? I'm going to show you that later on today. So let's say you got the spouse objection, and you had it's a Friday, you have a second appointment on Tuesday. And now, do you do the second appointments usually on Zoom or the phone sometimes? Or do they always come back in? Yeah. Well, let's say they didn't show up. 3 o'clock, Gary Hart he MIA'd on you, missing in action, okay? So you start calling, leaving all those voicemails. Let's say I called a few times, left a message. So this will be my third message. Or I could email this. I would rather you call first if you leave this voicemail. If they don't respond back in, let's say, an hour, you email that to them. Now, I don't want you to put any fluff in this. How many of you, when you write those emails to follow up with your prospects, write like 2, 3, 4 paragraphs? Anybody? What happens when you get a email from a salesperson who you didn't buy from, and there's like 3 or 4 paragraphs?
Too long, didn't read.
You don't even read past the first sentence. Would I be right? Because you're too busy. So we don't want to fluff this out. We want to get straight to the point. We want to trigger a reaction, an emotional reaction. So don't change the wording. I swear, you see these 3 periods here? You better put those 3 periods there. There's a reason why I'm doing everything there. Do not change any of the words, okay? Hey, John, I called a few times last week and I left a few voicemails, but we didn't hear back from you. Where should we go from here? Hit send. That's it. You know what's going to happen? About 70% of them are going to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My wife had to go, she had an accident. Or, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was out of town on business. Or, we decided that now's not a good time. Or they're going to say something. Or, we decided to go with here.com, whatever they say. But what you just did is you now know where you're at with that prospect. And even if they said, we decided not to do it at this point, now you are what? Re-engaging them, helping them overcome that concern. I could do the same thing in a voicemail. Just I got to modify it. Yeah, John, it's Jeremy Minor with Miracle Ear. Called you. You were looking at getting getting some hearing aids so your wife wasn't smacking you around or anything. Again, you just repeat back whatever they said, okay? And I left a few voicemails last week, but we didn't hear back. Where should we go from here? Then you pause. Now, I can be reached. I'll be available here for a little bit today. My number is XYZ, XYZ. And like I said, I'll be available here for a little bit today. And that's all you do. It's that question. Where should we go from here, or how do you want to proceed from here? Everybody got that? No more fluffy emails? Okay? All right. Now, I can't say that with somebody I've never talked to, right? That wouldn't make any sense. It has to be somebody you've already talked to that didn't buy, that missed appointments. Those are words that raise your status. Why does it raise your status? Shows that you're busy. You got tons of clients. Okay. Now, let's do this. What if do prospects ever ask you how you're doing? Let's have some fun with this. Okay. Come out here. I'm going to role play this a little bit. Oh, you role play with me? Absolutely. Okay. Let's say that prospect comes in, and the first words out of their mouth are like, hey, how's it going today? What would you typically say?
I am doing well, but I'm so busy. I've been running around ever since conference. Glad to see you today.
Just something like that. And that's normal, right? It doesn't really help us, but it doesn't hurt us either, right? But what I want to do from everything I say, from every statement to every question, I want to get that prospect to what? Let their guard down. That's called disarming. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So I want to use a playful tone, and I'm going to show you how to do this here. Ask me how I'm doing today.
How are you doing today?
Just hanging out, being the boring guy. What about you? What do you think the prospect's going to say? Oh, I'm sure you're not boring. And what does that start to do? Get them to let their guard down. Just hanging out, being boring. What about you? Now, what if I said it with this? Now, what tone did I just use? Playful tone. What if I said it like this? Ask me that again.
How are you doing today?
Just hanging out, being the boring guy. What about you? Now, that sounds weird. Oh, he is really boring. What's wrong with him? Psycho. But if I simply use a playful tone, just hanging out being boring. What about you? I get a completely different reaction. Okay? So write that one down. Now we have to learn the tonality. I'm going to show you tonality here in just a minute. Okay, ask me the next question again. Ask me that question again.
How are you doing today?
Just trying to stay out of trouble. You getting in trouble over there, Bob? Oh, right? What did I just do? Oh, just trying to stay out of trouble. You getting into trouble over there? Oh, I'm always getting into trouble. What did I just do? Not completely, but I'm starting the process of getting the prospect to let their guard down. What if I shaved my head and I was completely bald? You want me to show you one on that? You guys got to use this to advantage if that's your case, okay? Ask me that question again.
How are you doing?
Oh, I've just been surfing the web looking for a better hairspray all day. What about you? And what do you think they're going to do? Oh, yeah. When my uncle went bald, I used to like make fun of him, blah, 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 blah. See how whatever I'm doing, I'm getting them disarmed. I'm getting them to let their guard down. From the first words out of my mouth till after they pay, it's all about getting them to let their guard down and keep their guard down. Because the moment the guard goes up, where does the sale start to go? It starts to derail. You see the difference in that? Okay, what about if the prospect is late? Say, oh, I'm so sorry. Say you're 25 minutes late, and apologize.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. I got caught up in traffic and came ripping in here. Do we still have time?
Well, should we forgive you this time?
I would appreciate it.
Okay. See, it's just a playful tone. Well, I don't know. Should we forgive you this time? Hey, Sally, should we forgive Bob for being 25 minutes late? I don't know. What did I just do? Playful tone does what? Now, who qualified to who there? Well, should we forgive you this time? Who qualified to who? Prospect qualifies to me, because who has the problems? Now, I do that in a playful tone because I'm like, should I forgive you? That's weird, right? I have to use the right tonality. Okay, thank you, good job. Now, there's 5 types of tonality, and I want you to write all of these down. I'm going to actually draw them up on the board, because these are very important. Okay, let me know if everybody can see this back there. So there are 5 types of tonality. 5 types. Who's the spelling bee champions in here? Don't make fun of me. Okay? If I spell something wrong. So there are 5 types of tonality. Now there's actually many subcategories of tonality, but we're just going to focus on the top 5. Okay. So the first one is a curious tone. So there's a curious tone. Now where would I use a curious tone? Can anybody tell me where I'd use a curious tone and really why? Remember, your tone is how your prospect interprets the intention behind every question you ask. So what part of the sales process would I use more of a curious tone more than likely?
On the phone.
Well, yeah, but what part of the call? Probably finding out about what their situation is, right? I want to use a more curious tone, right? Okay? Now, there's other questions that are going to require more of a confused tone. Now, this might throw some of you off. Why would you ever want to use a confused tone? What context would you ever want to use a confused tone in?
It can help keep your discussion open-ended and encourage them to answer
True.
perceived confusion. Address perceived confusion that you have.
See, if now, I'm not saying when you go through the hearing aid test, you're just confused, like, oh, I don't know how it works. That doesn't make any sense, right? But a confused tone in certain context actually causes the prospect's subconscious to say this. Oh, he or she didn't understand me when I said that. I need to clarify that more. Okay? Can you tell me, what's an emotional word that a lot of prospects tell you, like, oh, I'm just feeling stressed, or I'm so frustrated, or I'm annoyed? Like, what's an emotional word? Like, tell me what they might say. Just tell me the whole sentence.
No.
You be the prospect. I'm you. Well, guy version. Okay, yeah.
You know, it's just really been frustrating, you know, trying to communicate with
Hold
my
on.
wife.
Frustrating?
Well, yeah, it's like we talk, I hear her, but I
Okay.
misunderstand something, and then all of a sudden she's upset with me later
She's upset with you?
because
In what way?
I misunderstood her.
How long
And it's
is-
not that I'm ignoring, it's just I misunderstood.
how long has that been going on?
About 3 years, and it's just been gradually getting worse. I feel like we're splitting apart.
What's it doing to you?
Well, after 36 years of marriage, it's just really become frustrating. I'd rather just sit home.
Okay. What did I just do? When she said frustrated, that's an emotional word. So anytime a prospect tells you, I'm stressed, I'm concerned, I've got pressure, I feel tension, I'm annoyed, I'm worried, any emotional word, simply do this, worried, and use a confused tone. Did you see how she reacted? Even in a role play situation, her subconscious, you didn't know this, basically said, oh, he didn't understand what I meant by frustrated. I need to clarify that better. And when they clarify that better, where do they go? Below the surface. That is where their emotions start to come out. But if I didn't use a confused tone there, she would have never went there. You see the difference? If she just said all that, and I didn't even use that confused tone in that context, and then I just went on my script and asked the next surface level question, where would she still be? Surface level. Or I could have simply said, oh, hold on, how do you mean by frustrated? Now, what did my facial expression communicate? That I'm not understanding. Now, here's something to write down. Thank you very much. Your facial expressions are the remote control to how your tone comes across. Try having a confused tone and don't move your face. Let somebody try. Have a confused tone right now and don't move your face. You can't do it. Do you know one of the biggest things they train you out in Hollywood? When you're going through, like, let's say you're getting trained how to be an actor, actress. You know one of the biggest things they train you, because I went through some of this myself. As a salesperson, hired acting instructors to learn tonality. I know, I'm a crazy person. It's a long time ago. But they train you on how to use your facial expressions to change your tonality on a dime. And what that does when you're watching movies is it triggers emotional drivers in your brain that causes you to stay engaged. Could you imagine, somebody tell me your favorite actor, actress. Somebody tell me. Johnny Depp. Okay, somebody else. George Clooney. Who else?
Jason Momoa.
Okay. So can you imagine if you watch their movies and they just talk like this the whole time? Well then, Jane, I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we can go down to the gas station and we can get gas. And then after the gas station, we can go to your brother's house. And after your brother's house, then we can go down to the lodge and we can eat dinner and then we'll have a really good time. If they use the same monotone voice the entire conversation, what would you be doing? You would disengage. You would turn off the show. So when I train you, because this is just an introduction today, when I train you certain tonalities, we have to learn how to move our face, our facial expressions to communicate, because that affects how your tone comes out. Okay? Walk me through. What are you doing now? See, that's a curious tone. Okay? Compared to a confused. Oh, hold on, I'm not understanding. How often does that happen? Okay? So I'm going to show you more of that. Okay, so we've got the confused tone. We've also got a challenging tone. Oh my gosh, Jeremy. You can't use a challenging tone. What part of that conversation with that prospect would we maybe use a challenging tone? Anybody tell me? Do we have a microphone up here? Oh, we got this microphone. Somebody run it around. What part of the conversation would we be allowed to even use a challenging tone? Can we use a challenging tone in the first 1 minute? No, we don't have any trust or credibility there. Where would we use a challenging tone?
When you're coming to commitment.
More consequence.
Consequence.
Yeah.
What happens if you don't do anything?
What if you don't do anything about this and your hearing gets worse? Like, what would you do at that point? What if you don't do anything about this? See, that's a challenging tone. I'll show you some different examples of that. That's more of our consequence questions that I'm going to start showing you today. Okay? Then we have a concern tone. A tone that shows more empathy. Now, where would we use a concern tone possibly? I even kind of used it with you when I was probing, when I was like, oh, how long has it been going on? What tone did I use? A concern tone. What's that doing to you? Now, why would I use a concern tone in that situation? Why not say this? How long has it been going on for? Oh, what's it doing to you? Oh, nothing. It's not that bad. But if I'm like, what's it doing to you? Remember, your tone is how the prospect interprets your intention behind every question you ask. So she would interpret that as what? He cares. He or she cares for my situation. Now, if a prospect feels that you care for their situation, what is that doing? Building massive trust, raising your status. Here's one thing we all have to understand. It's going to sound completely counterintuitive to what you might have ever heard. Prospects do not buy from people they like. They buy from people who they trust can get them the best result. If they like you, that's just a bonus. You love grandma, but you're not necessarily buying from grandma. If you know somebody else, you might not really like them, but if you trust they can get you a better result, who are you going to buy from? Even though you love grandma. You love your neighbor who owns the local hardware store, but you're still buying your supplies from Amazon. You don't necessarily love Jeffrey Bezos, maybe you do, but you trust Amazon can get you a better result. See, now that's a great book from 1936 with Dale Carnegie where he talks about people buy from people they like. But that's 1936. We are in 2024. Social media, ads, billboards, TV commercials trying to sell us something. You wake up in the morning, besides going to the bathroom, what's the first thing you do? What's the first thing you do besides going to the bathroom? You get on your phone, you get on social media, and what do you start seeing? Ads trying to sell you something. You walk into your living room or your kitchen, you start pouring your coffee, you turn on the TV, what do you see? Commercials trying to sell you something. You get in your car, you turn on the radio, what do you hear? Radio ads trying to sell you something. You drive down the road, you see these big signs on the side, billboards trying to sell you something. You get on social media again, probably 2 minutes after you get in the office, and you do what? More ads trying to say something. Then you go to lunch and you see your aunt pitching her latest, greatest MLM. See, you're constantly being sold to all of the time. That wasn't the case in 1936. Because of that new phenomena, as human beings, we have built up defensive mechanisms in our survival part of our brain that every time we feel or hear someone that we feel is trying to sell us something, we go into what? Fight or flight mode. We stay guarded, okay? Our tone is how we get them to lower that guard. So you always have to remember, now that doesn't mean you can be mean to people and they're still going to buy, okay? But people, your prospects will always buy from the person and company who they feel can get them the best results. Now, how do you get them to feel internally that you can get them the best result? By building trust. If there's no trust, they don't feel you understand their unique situation. And if they don't feel you understand their unique situation, they're going to buy from someone else. Okay? Even if they feel like you understand their unique situation, they're still going to buy from you, even if your products, if you're 10 or 20% more, because they feel like you can get them the best result. Then we have the good old playful tone. Oh, just trying to stay out of trouble. You getting into trouble over there? That's a playful tone. So I want you to pay attention when we go through some of these questions today that started to develop for you about which tone I'm actually using. And we're going to talk about why I'm using that tone in that context, in that situation. So when we do these questions, we're going to role play some. I want you to pay attention to these three things. I want you to pay attention to my tone. I want you to pay attention to my facial expressions. And I want you to pay attention to my body language. and then I'm going to break it down for you what I just did. Okay? Remember, what are we focusing on? Numbers game or skills game? Which one makes us more sales, helps more people? Skills game. Okay? Now, what I'm also going to show you as well are other things. These are called verbal cues. Okay? Now, verbal cues help you bridge from question to question. Now, another big reason why when you ask questions, your prospects give you vague, generalized, surface level answers is because you sound what? Scripted. You sound like a salesperson, right? They feel like they're being interrogated, so they emotionally shut down. So I'm going to show you how to bridge from question to question using verbal cues. Examples of verbal cues are like, okay, right, really, okay? Now, about every 8 to 12 seconds, there's many others, but every 8 to 12 seconds in a conversation, when the prospect is talking, we want to use a verbal cue. Now, I'm just exaggerating. You're not going to do that every 2 seconds. It's going to sound weird. You ever get on a phone call and you just talk for 3 minutes straight and they don't make a sound and you say what? Are you still there? You don't feel like they're present in the conversation. So these help you cause the prospect to feel that you are present in that conversation. Because who in here is dating somebody or married? What's a big complaint you get sometime when the other person's talking? You're not present, right? So if the prospect doesn't feel you're present, is that raising my status or lowering my status? Oh, see, it's just communication 101, okay? Now, I also want to bridge using those. Oh, okay, and what happened then? Oh, she told you that? Really? See, I want to use a verbal cue to bridge from question to question. Verbal cue question. I have to bridge from question. And how long has that been going on for? Because what most salespeople do, because they've never been trained this, is you ask a question, they answer, and then you do what? You sit back, you pause for a second or two, because you start to what? What else is I'm going to ask next? You don't know what to ask next. So you pause a second or two, and you're like, okay, cool, awesome. Let me ask you. Or, oh, gotcha. I wanted to ask you. And what does that sound like? Scripted. You're asking a series of sales questions. So the prospect starts to stay surface level. You see how, now if I verbal, okay, and what happened then? Well, that's been going on for 5 years. Really? But what happened next though? See, now it feels more what? Conversational. It feels like they're talking to a best friend, somebody they already trust. And does that raise my status? Yes. Okay, you see what we're doing. Now, I'm also going to show you this. Verbal pausing and verbal pacing. Now, anytime with the questions I write up here that you see, there's like 3 periods in between the words. That does not mean I don't know punctuation. For you spelling bee champs out there, spelling bee Nazis, okay? That means I'm showing you where to pause. Verbal pause. Remember I said earlier, one of the biggest reasons your prospects give you vague, generalized, surface level answers is because you ask the questions too fast and they have no time to internalize and think deeper about what you're asking. So the way for me to pace that out is I use verbal pauses in between some of the words that causes your brain to hang on to everything I'm about to say. You know 2 people that are really, really good at doing that? Does anybody know who Tony Robbins is? Anybody ever seen him on YouTube, gone to his events? Do you ever wonder why he comes out on stage and he just talks like really, really fast and then he just stops 2 or 3 seconds and then he asks a question and everybody's like, they just start crying. He's been trained in verbal pacing, verbal cues, and verbal pauses. Is anybody born with those skills? Anybody born out of your mother's womb with verbal pacing skills? Probably not. Another great person who does that really well. Now, get into politics, I'm like right down the middle, like an independent voter that doesn't vote half the time because they think they're all crazy. So when I watch politicians, I watch them how they communicate, okay? And one really, really good person that has been obviously trained in this category is President Obama. When you watch him, whether you liked his politics or not, when you watched him, the reason why he moved audiences is because he was an expert in slowing down, changing his tone for certain reasons, and triggering emotional drivers. Now, the president now, not so good at those things. Would we go, whether you like his politics or not, we all know probably not as good as President Obama, right? Okay, so you see where we're going with this. So NEPQ, I'm going to give you a few examples of NEPQ connection questions, okay? Now, connection questions, remember NEPQ stands for Neuro-emotional persuasion questions. Connection questions help disarm your prospect. They take the focus off you and immediately put it on them. And they also help get your prospects into results-based thinking over price or cost-based thinking. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few examples of these. Now, let's say in this example, instead of using questions, okay, so tell me how it works. I've got a brief introduction from Jared. I know we trained your industry. We have trainers that do more of it than I do. But tell me how it works. You're the hearing coordinator. They might come in. They have an appointment with you. They've already talked with somebody to book the appointment. Would I be right on there? And so where do you meet them? Do you meet them right in the lobby? Do they get brought back to your office? Somebody tell me what usually happens.
Brought back to our office.
Brought back to your office. Are you sitting down, standing up when they come in?
You're standing up.
You're standing up to welcome them. Okay. So instead of saying, hey, how's it going today? Which is okay. I might say, hey, welcome into the office. Now, do you guys have notes on any of these people on why they're coming in?
Yeah.
And what would those notes say? They're going to be different for everybody, but how detailed are they? What would you know?
They're usually pretty detailed. We know their age. We know why they're coming in.
Okay. What would be a big reason why they're coming in? Like, what would the average person, what would they have on that form?
Usually they got a flyer in the mail.
Okay. But would the person who booked that appointment know maybe a little bit of their problems, like they're having a hard time, maybe they're younger and they feel like they might lose their job because their hearing's bad, or just random stuff like that?
Yeah, we know why they want to come in, what they want to try to fix,
Yeah.
what they want to get better help with.
Okay, perfect. So that's all going to depend on what I see on the form. But the first question out of my mouth is getting them into that results-based thinking. Okay, so I might say, hey, welcome into the office, go ahead and come on in. Okay, so I was reading your notes. I was reading some notes that you had given to Tiffany at the front office when you booked the appointment. It looks like you came in to, I guess, possibly look at maybe some different hearing aids so you can hear your grandkids a little bit better, right? What did I just do? Where did I put them in? What frame? About looking at getting hearing aids so you can start hearing your grandkids better, right?
Emotion.
I get them into, remember, I'm not selling the hearing aids, I'm selling the results of what the hearing aids does. So if they put, if on the notes they said that they're having a hard time hearing their grandkids, I just want to add that in. See, so here's the formula. Looks like you came in to look at possibly getting hearing aids so you can, and you're going to repeat back the result of why they might want the hearing aids. Now, are there some times where that's not really written down? It might just be responded to an ad, we don't really know why they're coming in. So then I got to be more generalized. I can put about looking at different options for hearing aids so you can hear better, right? See, that's a generalized statement. Do I want to be generalized if I don't have to be? No, I want to be as specific as possible based on their notes, because for some person, maybe they're younger, and like I said, they're having a hard time hearing and they feel like they might get fired. So would I want to put that at the end? Looks like you came in to look at some different, some possible hearing aid options. I think you'd mentioned like you want to get promoted in your job, right? See, I'm getting them whatever the end result is for them, if I kind of already know it. Is everybody with me on that? Now, why would I say the words possibly getting yours? That's a neutral word. Why wouldn't I be more assumptive there and say, looks like you came in to get hearing aids so you can hear better? What would some people do? Well, I'm still looking around. I'm not ready to buy today. And what do we just trigger? We literally just triggered the wall to come up. All I have to do to not trigger that is just put the word possibly there. Because they will never say, nope, I'm not possibly looking to hear better. They just can't do it. That you might be looking for like, might be, possibly, maybe. I wouldn't say maybe in that context. I would say might be or possibly. Now, you can't use the word possibly 67 times in that conversation because that's going to sound what? Like a technique, kind of weird. And as I build a bigger gap throughout that conversation, I'm going to use those type of words far less, right? Because I built more of a gap. I've helped them relive their pain or have a fear of future pain, and now I can be more assumptive in a different way. I'll show you what I mean by that. But that word, the neutral word there, causes my prospects to let their guard down. They're always going to say, yeah, right. No one will ever say, no, I'm not possibly looking for that. They just won't do that. Okay, see how I can cause the prospect to keep their guard down by just putting in neutral language in there. Very simple to do. Okay, so take a look. Okay, it looks like you came in to look at possibly, look at different hearing aid options, so you can, and just repeat back whatever the form says. If it doesn't say anything, so you can hear better, right? Just be generalized. Try to be as specific as the form allows you to. Okay? All right, now, my second NEPQ connection question. Now, how many of you use this question? So what brings you in today? Now, some people will just spill their beans and they talk for 7 minutes. But do I want them to spill their beans and talk that long at the beginning of the conversation? Why would I not want that? They're in control. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But number two, when a prospect starts to rattle off for 3, 4, 5 minutes, guess what happens in their brain? It becomes unorganized. And they start going down paths, right? I know you guys have heard this, like, oh, I'm just suffering, I'm just having a lot of hearing aid problems, and then eventually 3 minutes later, they're talking about their grandma who in 1972 evaded Vietnam and then had them, and like, they're just all over the place. Am I right? And where does their brain go? Their brain is now unorganized and uncertain. And then you don't know what to probably ask next, do you? Because they spilled all their beans before you could even ask them any questions. And now they're not opening up. So if they start going off tangents, what would be like let me give you an example. Can you come up here real quick?
Sure.
Let's just see where this conversation goes. So let's say if I use this question that some of you might be in and just kind of go off with what the average prospect says and just start rambling.
It's interesting that I'm up here role-playing with you with this particular thing because this is my favorite thing to ask once I've set it up properly.
So I just want you to be like the average prospect. You ask that question, they just start rambling. And I want to show you how I'm going to interject and ask the next question. Now, what is a good question that you need to find out about their current situation that you would normally ask maybe in a few minutes after this?
In a few minutes, what's a question not as the prospect,
as a salesperson, like a good question to find out what their real situation is with their hearing?
Generally, once I've gotten them into a spot where we've sat down, I've looked over some of their intake paperwork, and this may help you too, is we all have intake paperwork that they fill out, they'll highlight. Our PCC is supposed to get a good amount of information for us to use. I'll typically have brought up something that they've stated as their goal, like you say.
I see on the form here that you're struggling a little bit like at events, like being able to hear if somebody's talking to you, more than 10 feet away. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? It could be random, right?
Right.
What's that?
Put the mic closer. Thank you.
See, you're qualifying to her. I like that. It's good. Okay, so what brings you in today?
Well, my hearing isn't what it used to be, and I think as you get older, everything's not working as well as it was. I found that I'm not able to hear as maybe as distinctly as I used to be able.
And I want to find that out. You mentioned a second ago that your hearing wasn't what it used to be. What did you mean by that specifically?
Well, when I was younger, I used to...
Stop. What did I just do? I'm interjecting. Now, there's a difference between interjecting and interrupting. Interrupting is, oh, well, let me tell you about me, or let me tell you about what we could do for there. Interjecting is asking for more clarification. Your prospects will never get upset. And I want to know that, but you mentioned a second ago that your hearing's not what it used to be. Tell me, what did it used to be? And now I just reframed him back to where? Being organized about the problem and the issue. I see. What is the biggest reason why you get objections? Do you know why? Is it the prospect's fault or our fault? You get objections.
Our fault.
Why?
They didn't make enough value.
Or we failed to address it.
Actually, that's good. Psychologically, it's because we've triggered uncertainty in their brain. And when a human being is uncertain, they don't what? They don't make decisions. Okay? When a human being is certain about what you're offering, what does that mean? That they're certain in what you're doing and how you can help them. I have to trigger certainty. So if I let prospects ramble off on just things that have nothing to do with their problems and how you solve them, their brain starts to become what? Uncertain. Which leads to what? Objections. Because they're rambling so much, they're not even really opening up to your questions. And when you try to ask some type of closing question, they give you, I need to do more research, even though they're about to go deaf. Doesn't make any sense, right? Okay, thank you for doing that. Does that make sense how you can interject and reframe them back on the path to get them where they want to go? That's just an example of that. So instead of maybe asking that question, I want to be more specific. Now, why would I ask them? So this is a little tweak. I might say, so where did you actually, how did you find us? Now, would I already know that, how they found us? Okay, so you're not going to ask that question. So here's what you're going to ask, okay? Now, if you didn't know, would you know on every prospect how they found you? Okay, so the ones you don't, you would simply ask, walk me through, because I've got your form here. How did you actually find us? Why would I want to know that information? Possibly, but it gives me a better what? An overview of what's going on. Because they might have said, well, my aunt bought this pair of hearing aids from you a couple years ago, and she said you guys are really good at what you do. That's completely different than them saying, oh, I don't know, I just looked it up online and I'm just looking around at different hearing aid companies. That tells me two very different things, right? But if I didn't ask that question, I don't understand that. I'm just guessing. Remember, we don't want to throw the bucket of mud against the wall, hoping and praying that something we say is going to stick. I want to know what mud I need to throw on the wall because they've told me. So I know what mud to throw on the wall is going to stick. I'm not guessing. Remember, I don't want to take the hopium drug, okay? So if I saw that they came in on an ad from social media, what would I ask? Hey, when you saw the ad on Facebook, what was it that they were going over that caused you to, want to look into this further? Now, what do the ads on social media even say? Give me an example. Somebody tell me. Are they all different? What do they say? Is it a video of somebody? Is it what's going on? Do we have a microphone somewhere here? What is it? I like this front table. You guys are engaged. Okay, so it says $6,000 benefit. That's all it says? What's that?
Do you have ringing in your ears?
That's okay. So, hey, so when you saw the ad where they were talking and asking about like ringing in your ears, besides maybe the ringing in your ears, what's caused you to, want to look into this further? Now, why would I say besides you might have ringing in your ears, what caused you to want to look into this further? Why would I say that? Why would I ask it that way?
It's a leading question.
Okay, but because if I said, what was it about the ad that attracted your attention? I'd be like, well, you were talking about ringing in the ears. Okay? But I want to find out more about what's behind that. Okay? Because that gives me more what? Understanding of their situation. If I don't know that, once again, I'm guessing. And guessing is not a winning strategy if you want to be really successful in sales, like at the very top, okay? Now, here at this point, okay. Now, let's say this is your third connection question. We'd probably modify this, but this is just based off the 45-minute conversation I had with Jared. Now, I want you to pay attention to what I do here. This is what we call a status frame, okay? Because I would never want to say something like, at the end of the conversation, if you feel this is a good fit for you and we feel you're a good fit for our hearing aids, we'll show you to get started. Fair enough? Sounds weird. And what is the prospect going to do even if they say, yeah? What are they going to do? What are most prospects going to do? Do they genuinely believe that if they're like, hey, here's my credit card, I'm ready to buy. Nope, I'm sorry, you're not a good fit for us. So sorry. They don't believe that. So you don't want to use questions like that or say things like that because you lose what? Trust. Have you ever had a salesperson says, if we feel like you're a good fit for us, we'll show you what to do next? Did you believe that if you gave them their credit card, they would turn you down? Probably not, right? Okay, so you don't want to ask questions like that. So here's what I want to do. I want to actually downplay what I'm doing. Yeah, in this meeting today, it's pretty basic. It's really more for us to understand kind of, where your hearing is now as far as like how your brain processes speech and background noise compared to maybe where you're wanting that to be, to see what that gap looks like. Now, what did I just do there? Now, we'll modify this question here for sure. This is just off my knowledge from Jared. Now, why would I downplay the meeting? Why wouldn't I say, this is going to be a great meeting and why would I want to downplay it? What does that do in the prospect's mind? Yes, why would I put their guard down? Exactly. Because if I'm all excited about now, does that mean you shouldn't be excited about what you sell? No, but you want to keep that to yourself. You want to keep that internal, okay? You don't want to, you start showing too much excitement too soon. Prospects' guard goes up just like your guard goes up when you go to a car dealership looking for a car and the car salesman comes out and they're really excited you're there. What do? Guard goes up. I don't want to compete against the guard. Why would you want to sell against the guard? Just keep the guard down. It's much easier. Now, what did I do with my hands here? Yeah, today's pretty basic. It's really more for us to find out or understand kind of where your hearing's at now. Where did I put my hands? Where your hearing's at now. Why would I put it down here? Why wouldn't I put it up here? What did I just visually put in their mind? That there's a gap. But if I started here and then I went to here, not much of a gap. It's really more, I see a lot of people do this. It's really more for us to understand, kind of where you're at now with your hearing and kind of what that looks like compared to where you want it to be. And I'm like, that doesn't show anything. So I've got to be concise. See how my body language can imprint things in that prospect's brain. Okay, so take a look. Where your hearing's at now, as far as how your brain processes speech and like background noise, compared to maybe where you're wanting that to be, to kind of see what that gap looks like. See what I did? Now, what am I going to do now? Because I want them to understand that there could be possible next steps at the end. Okay, I want to seed that in their mind. Why would I want to seed that in their mind? Somebody tell me, why would I want them to seed that in their mind that there could be next steps for them at the end of that conversation? Yeah. See, a lot of times we just confuse prospects. They just don't know what the next step is because you don't tell them. A lot of times they just tell you things like, well, this looks good. Maybe I need some time to think about it because you didn't implant that there could be next steps. Now, I'm not going to force that on them. Okay, I've got to build a gap where they basically do what? Sell themselves. Okay? Yeah, and at that point, if you feel like, hey, this might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps as far as which hearing aids would cause you to hear the best. Would that help you if we did that for you? And at that point, if you feel like, hey, this might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help you? No, it would not help me to talk about possible next steps. What words did I use that were neutral there? If you feel, now why would I say feel rather than think? Remember, what side of their brain do I want them to stay on? Their emotional side. When I start using words like think, do you think this could be the answer? Where am I switching them to? Logical side. You probably didn't even realize that. Just that one little word can cause a prospect go from their emotional side of the brain to their logical side, and then they start thinking it over, okay? Now, at that point, if you feel like, yeah, hey, this might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps as far as like different hearing aid options that could cause you to hear the best. Would that help you if I did that for you? No, it would not. See, they won't do that. They'll be like, yeah, that would help, okay? See how I'm getting that buy-in there. Now, why do we say, would that help you if we did that for you? Who's qualifying to who? Would that help you if we did that for you? What type of tone did I just use? Kind of like empathy. Would that help you if we did that for you? Okay? See, I'm using my tone. You with me so far? Okay, now there's other connection questions. There's a couple more that we would ask. Okay, but we don't have time to go through all of that today. Situation questions. These help you and your prospect understand what their real situation is. Now, here's the problem. If we can't help the prospect understand what their real situation is, because remember we talked about most of them don't really understand what their real situation is. They kind of understand. I can't hear well, but they don't really understand the root causes of what causes that. They don't understand the consequences of what happens if they don't do anything about that. Would we be right? Okay? So if we can't help the prospect understand what their real situation is, how are you going to build a gap to where they want to be if they don't really understand where they're currently at? That would be really hard. But if you tell them what their situation is, what's that going to do? One ear, out the other. Because you're what? You're biased. You're the salesperson, right? So I can't tell them. My questions allow them to what? Tell themselves. And when a prospect tells themselves, it's true. When you tell them, maybe it's not true because you're trying to sell them. See where we're going with this? Remember, we want to get the prospects to sell themselves rather than you trying to do all that work because you're not the one that has the problems again. Remember? Okay. Now, they're also to help you understand what the real situation is. Why do you need to understand the real situation? You know how to best to help them. You know how to position everything else. If you don't understand the real situation, you are guessing. And guessing is not a very good strategy if you want to really do well in sales and help more people. Okay? So these are very important questions. And these are more logical-based questions because we're finding out facts. So these are more factual-based questions. There's not a lot of emotion in these yet. Possibly. I can show you how to do that, though. Now, you had mentioned that you might see something on the form. Give me an example of what I might see on the form. Can you tell me, do we have the micro, or somebody tell me, what would I maybe see on the form? Yeah, right there. Ma'am, can you? Yeah.
Do you have a hard time hearing your spouse?
Okay, that's what they put on the form. Okay, I see on the form that you had mentioned you might be having some issues, your spouse might having some issues, you might have some issues with hearing your spouse. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What tone did I just use? It's kind of a curious / concerned. Why? Why would I use kind of a curious tone, but a little bit concerned because this is, your sale is one of the most emotional things you can sell. Not having their hearing. It's very, very emotional. Okay? So you've got to come across that you are concerned for them if this doesn't get solved. Because what if they don't get it solved? How is their life and their family's lives affected by that? Right? Big responsibility on your shoulders as a hearing specialist. A lot of it just depends on you, your communication skills, whether or not their life changes and their kids' lives changes, and now they can have memories compared to them not having those memories. That stuff I take personal. I take that like on my shoulders. Like it's my job to communicate that. Because if I can't, problems stay the same, nothing ever changes for that prospect, okay? So, it's here in the form that you had mentioned that you might be having some issues with what else?
Hearing in church.
With being able to hear in church. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on? Now, why would I want them to tell me more about that? Why not just accept that they're having issues hearing in church? Who cares?
That they're paid.
Yes.
You don't have to say it.
Yes. What else?
The choir's loud, the preacher's quiet.
Remember, what are the two biggest emotional drivers that cause a human being to want to change? Pain or the fear of future pain? If we cannot help our prospects relive their pain of those problems or have a fear of future pain, they don't feel any need to what? Change. And if they don't feel any need to change, they're going to give you what? Objections, and they're not going to buy. Now, sometimes when I've done these keynotes, somebody will come up to me like, Jeremy, I have a hard time asking questions. I don't want them to feel pain. Right? Some of you might be thinking that. I don't like to ask questions where they tell me their pain. I feel bad. Can I make a suggestion to you? If you don't help them relive their pain, they will never feel any need to change. And if they don't feel any need to change, they're going to end up losing their hearing. And whose responsibility is that?
Ours.
That's ours. So is it better to help them relive that pain where they want to change, or not have them feel any pain where they don't want to change? And then they end up losing their hearing. See, pain is good. Okay? Relive their pain or the fear of future pain. So that's why I want them to, can you tell me a little bit more about that? And then when they tell me more, I want to clarify and probe off that. I don't want to just ask surface level questions. So besides the blank, what other hearing issues are you dealing with right now? So give me an example of, somebody said that they can't hear in church, and they start telling me all the issues that they can't hear in church. Do I just want to stop at that? Why wouldn't I want to just stop with that and just go with that? Oh, the way we can solve you so you can hear church is this way. Why would I not want to do that? Why would I want to keep finding more issues? What does that do to the gap? Way bigger. Because here's the thing. If you only help the prospect feel that they have one problem, what could happen there? They might think that they might be able to solve that problem on their own. Possibly. But if I can help that prospect start to understand that they have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 other problems, and the gap is that big, even if there's one problem in there that they feel like they might be able to solve, there's still what? 4 other problems that there's no way I could do that. So they still buy. So the more problems I can get the prospect to see that they have, not by telling them, but my questions and allowing them to see that themselves, the bigger the gap, the more urgency for them to want to change. There's that word change again. That means they don't really give you many objections. And if they do give you a basic concern, it's very easy to help them overcome it because the gap is so big. Okay? You with me on that? What were you going to say there?
Some of our questions are actually also meant, we help with communication.
Yeah.
So some of our questions is like, is the television too loud for your spouse or your family members?
Now walk me through this. When your spouse and family members are watching TV and you've got it on, what volume to put it on, Bill? How are they reacting to that? Rather than, what was the question? The question you asked was close-ended.
Well, I guess what I was getting at is not only bringing out their pain, but bringing out the pain of the family.
Yes, because not only do they want to move away from their pain, but because they don't want their family to have the pain as well. So that's like a double whammy. That's really good. That's really good. Excellent, actually. So besides your TV being so loud that your wife is throwing things at you and the kids don't want to be in the room, what other hearing issues are you possibly dealing with? Well, I'm also dealing with, okay, see what I'm doing there. Everybody with me on that? How I'm broadening that. I'm helping them find out, who am I helping find out what the real situation is? Them. Their brain is now organized and certain about their situation, and now I'm certain about what issues and problems they have. So I know how to position everything else after this. Okay? If I don't, I'm guessing again. Guessing's not good. Okay, and how often is that actually happening though? Okay? See? Repeat the actual problem. See, that's what we call, it's a clarifying question. Now, why would I want to ask them, I'm getting into the weeds, but this is really important. Why would I ask them, how often is that happening? Why on earth would I want to know how long this has been going on for?
Adds more pain.
Why does it add more pain?
Because then they realize that, man, this is bigger than I thought.
Yes. He hit it right on the head. If I don't ask them how long it's been going on, they don't recognize that it's been an issue or problem for a long time. They've really never thought about that, right? They've kind of thought about it, but when they start thinking about it, now they're like, holy crap, I've had this issue for 7 years. And it causes them to start questioning their way of thinking of not changing. See, everything I'm asking here is seeding what? Change. That it's far less risky for them to get the funds, get the hearing aids, and their situation changes, they get what they want, than it is for them to do nothing at all, the problems stay the same, and nothing ever changes. Which is more risky? See, remember, it all comes back to human beings. Selling is all about change, yet human beings don't like change. So how do we help them overcome the fear of change? Everything I'm showing you here is seeding one thing, that is far less risky to change than to stay the same. Overall. All right, starting to conceptualize this. Okay. Now, let's keep going on. Now, probing questions. Now, while they're answering, and I did this with you, you probably noticed. When you started talking, okay, I simply said, oh, how long has that been going on for? What type of tone? Concern. What did my facial expression communicate? How long has that been going on for? Why would I put my hand on my chest? What is that body language?
Emotion.
It causes them to feel what? That I'm empathetic with it. Women are a lot better at doing that than men. We have to train men how to have more empathy. Women naturally have more empathy. Use that to your advantage. It helps your prospect. Okay? How long has that been going on for? Okay? Remember, your tone is how they interpret your intention behind what you're saying and asking. Remember that example I did out here with the teenager? How it felt when I did this compared to this. Okay? All right. And then I might lean, oh, so that's been going on for 7 years. Has that had an impact on you? What if I said it this way? So that's been going on 7 years. Has that had an impact on you? Not really. I said the same words. What was the difference? So you've been having this issue for 7 years. Has that had an impact on you? It's not that bad. So, this has been going on for 7 years. Has that had an impact on you? What did I just do? What was the difference? What did you feel? Emotion. Concern. How did I do that? Because remember, I verbal paced the question out. That causes the prospect to do what? Internalize and think deeper about what I'm asking. And because I ask that in a concerned tone, they feel that I'm concerned for these consequences, which builds more trust. See how this all is relatable? Okay. All right, now problem awareness questions. Let's keep moving on here. I'm going to run out of time in 3.5 hours. So problem awareness questions. Now that we understand their real situation, now there's other situation questions that we would do for your industry if I had more time with you guys. But once I understand their real situation and they understand it, what do I have to now do? I have to start building that gap even more. I'm mainly doing that in what's called problem awareness questions. Now, this is helping them understand what their real problems are, but more importantly, what is the root cause? What's causing the problem? See, most salespeople can get a prospect to tell them one problem. Remember, I want to have them tell me 3, 4, 5 problems, but more importantly, I want them to understand what the root cause of those problems are, and then more importantly, how those problems are affecting them personally. Why would I need them to understand how their problems are affecting them and their family's lives personally? What does that do? It adds a lot of pain. What else does it do? Somebody tell me. What's that?
It makes it personal, it makes it specific to them.
Yes. So their mind is certain. Remember, objections are triggered because of uncertainty. Uncertainty is triggered by the salesperson, okay? Not the prospect. If we can't keep them engaged, we lose that. They start thinking about the weather, they start thinking about the dry cleaning they got to pick up, and they tune out, and at the end, they don't have certainty. That's why they delay to making decisions, okay? All right, let's take a look at a few problem awareness questions. Now, let's say in this example that they already have hearing aids. Do you ever get that where they come in with hearing aids? They've already had hearing aids. Maybe they've had them for 10 or 15 years. Maybe they're in their mid-80s or 90s. They've already had hearing aids, okay?
Yeah.
That happens? Okay. So what would I want to do? So, you've had XYZ hearing aids the last 5 years. Those are fairly decent. Besides blank, what's caused you to feel like those aren't good enough for you? What caused you to feel like you might want to look at something else? What's caused you to feel like you might want something better? Now, why on earth would I ask that question that way? Because you might have been taught this. Can you tell me a couple of problems you're having with your hearing aids? You ever asked a question like that? Now, if they're a lay down, they're probably going to open up to you. But what if they're not a lay down sale? What do they say?
No, they're great.
Oh, they're not that bad. They're pretty good. But why would they say that even though they booked an appointment to come see you?
It's a very sterile line of questioning.
Yes. It's vague and it's too generalized. So I'm going to get surface level, vague answers. But see how this is specific, okay? So you've had XYZ hearing aids the last 3 years. I mean, those are fairly decent. Now, why would I say those are fairly decent? Why wouldn't I say those are great hearing aids? I don't need to reinforce it, but I also don't want to say those hearing aids are horrible. So why would I say those are fairly decent? What did I just seed in your mind when I said those are fairly decent? What would I seed in your mind? Doubt. Do you see? Because if I said those hearing aids are horrible, they might say, oh, they're not that bad. And they get defensive. And what did I just trigger? The wall. Oh my gosh. But if I'm like, yeah, those are fairly decent. I mean, see how I seeded that simply by using my tone. That's more of a skeptical tone. That's underneath challenging. I don't want to go too far in the weeds. But see how I can seed doubt and not trigger sales resistance from them simply by using my tone and changing it to more of a neutral statement. Yeah, those are fairly decent. So I triggered doubt in their mind that I might know something about those hearing aids that might not be so good that they don't know. And what does that cause them to do? Could be more open to what I'm offering, but it mainly seeds doubt. See how I'm constantly seeding doubt, but in a way that opens them up, that doesn't trigger sales resistance, okay? Now, why would I say, what's caused you to feel like you might want something better? Or what's caused you to feel, why would I say feel? Why wouldn't I say think? Remember? Emotion. Well, the reason why I feel like and now they start telling me why they want to change, but more importantly, who are they telling why they want to change? Themselves. See how we're getting the prospects to do all the work rather than you do all the work. Okay, there's more to this. I'm just showing you a few basic examples. Okay, now let's keep moving on. Here's another one. Instead of that question, let's say I could ask it this way. Now, this is just a different example of it. Okay? Now, to ask this question, you have to really learn tonality, remember the skills game, and you have to learn verbal pacing. Because what if I ask this question back here like this? I mean, you've got XYZ hearing aids. You've had those the last 3 years. They're fairly decent. Besides not being able to hear so well, what's caused you to feel like you might want something different? Oh, I'm just kind of looking around. Why? When I ask the question too fast, the prospect's going to give me a knee-jerk, surface-level answer. I give them no time to internalize. Do you see the difference? Same thing here. So are you 100% satisfied with the results you've been getting? So are you 100% satisfied with the results you're getting from those hearing aids? What did I trigger? What did I seed? Why would I say 100%? Why not say, are you satisfied with those hearing aids? Yeah, they're pretty good. But when I add in 100%, why would I say 100%? Because nobody likes 100% of what they have. Think about the person you're married to or dating out in a long-term relationship. In the first couple of months, you thought they were the angels on high. They do nothing wrong. They're so perfect. I love them so much. And 6 months later, you're like, oh, I don't really like when they do that. It's so annoying. See, you're human. You will never like 100% of anything you have or buy. There's always something you want changed or better. So if I simply put in the word 100%, it changes what they think. They might like those. But if I simply say 100%, more than likely they're going to say, well, I wouldn't say 100%. Not 100%? What don't you like? Watch what I do here. So are you 100% satisfied with the results you're getting from those? What type of tone did I use? Kind of skeptical, concerned. Okay? Now, see my facial expressions. Well, I mean they're good, but I wouldn't say 100%. Not 100%. What did I trigger? If I don't use 100%, they're either going to say yes or no. But if I say 100%, they start to internalize what? Doubt. That there's something they don't like. Well, I don't like, what would they maybe say they don't like? Give me an example. What?
I can't understand a noise.
I can't understand noises when I go into a room and there's music. They could say that. Whereas before, they might have said, no, they're pretty good. Right? Because when I say 100%, it causes them to think about things they don't like. Hold on, not 100%? What don't you like? Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, they work pretty good, but I've noticed when I go into, and they start to tell me something they don't like. And who are they also telling that? Themselves. Okay? This is how we get the prospect to persuade themselves that they want to change. Let's keep going here. Okay. How about conducting the hearing test? Okay, I took this from some of the stuff that Jared sent me on this. Okay? Now, some of this you're just talking here real quick, but I want to show you a few things. So the next step is to test your hearing and your... Now, if I don't pronounce this right, don't get angry at me. Okay? The numbers at the top are the tones. Now, from left to right, they go low to low tones to high tones, kind of like the keys of a piano. Now, the numbers on the side are volume levels in the forms of decibels. As the numbers get smaller, the sounds get softer. So we're going to play sounds softer and softer, a mark where you barely hear those sounds. Would I be right? We're right on pace. I'm just taking this from some of the scripts, okay? Now, here's where I want to start seeding what? Doubt. But they might have problems that they didn't know they had, okay? All I can do when I'm talking is change my tone to trigger that, if I'm just reading the words, okay? Now, right here at 0, this is what is considered 20/20 in the hearing world. If the marks where you barely hear in the green area, well, you're doing okay for now, for sure. Now, I added in the word now. You're doing okay for now.
Yeah.
What does that do? What does that seed?
Seeds a doubt for their future and the permanence of their hearing as it is.
Yeah, because if I don't put in the word now, you're doing okay. That doesn't really seed that there could be problems down the road if they don't what? Do something about it now. Do you see I'm seeding that just by putting you're doing okay for now. And what type of tone did I just use? Concerned. Because if I don't do that, where you barely hear in the screen area, that means you're doing okay for now for sure. That doesn't seed anything. Just a straight monotone voice. But the concern tone seeds that there could be future problems. That triggers doubt. See what I'm doing here, okay? Now, if those marks if those marks are from this point, though, to this point, that's one of the biggest reasons why people come to us wanting hearing aids. This is where we can help you the most. Now, why did I sigh at the beginning of that? Now, if those marks are at this point to this point, what does that sigh do? Adds a little pain, a little bit more doubt. Okay? Now, why would I say this is one of the biggest reasons why people come to us wanting hearing aids? What does that do to my status? Does it raise it or does it lower it? It raises it. Why does it raise it? Because it shows that you handle this problem every single day. You obviously must be really good at it. Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest reasons why people come to us wanting hearing aids. And this is where we can help you actually the most. Okay? Now, let's keep going here. Now, once you fall into this red area, it just becomes a question on how much can we actually help you at that point? What did I just see? Now, if it falls into this red area, it just becomes a question on how much we can even help you at that point.
Fear of future pain.
What am I triggering? What am I seeding? Fear of future pain, right? Fear of pain right now. I'm seeding all of that. Okay? Sense of urgency. See how I'm doing everything with the way I'm shifting my tone. I'm using the same words on your script. I'm just shifting my tonality. Okay, now I would tweak some of these things on the script, but just by changing my tone, I can trigger different reactions. Okay? Now this last one here, because I didn't put it on here, can we raise that up where it says if your hearing gets into this profound range? Jared, do you mind? Just on there. The notes. Go back. Could be trouble. Okay, can you just go back to it? I'll make something up. What's the next one? Now, once you get into this profound range. Now, what does profound mean? I read that. I'm like, what do they mean by profound? I didn't Google it. What does profound mean?
Profound in most states is legally deaf in those ranges.
Would your prospect know what that meant, though? Profound?
Without us explaining.
Okay. Be careful about using words that are industry lingo words. That if you said, oh, if your hearing gets in this profound range, I'd be like, I don't know what the hell that means, and I'm triggering what? Uncertainty. Okay. So I want to make that now. If your hearing gets into this range, it's extremely hard for us to even do anything because that means you're deaf, and there's not much we can do for you. Okay, or something like that. I can't see what I put in my notes here. Okay, let's keep going here. Now, at this point, I want to do a few things. This is called an identity frame. Okay? I saw in your script you like to do price conditioning, which I love that. So what I just did real quick on the plane over here is I tied your price conditioning into what's called an identity frame. Okay? Remember I talked about learning how to frame the prospect's way of thinking that's allowed their situation the same. I also can frame their way of thinking that allows them to want to change. Okay? So after I do that, so good for you for looking at doing this now. I mean, I talk to a lot of people and, some just don't really mind waiting until their hearing is in this range. And then they have to spend like $12,000-$15,000 plus on hearing aids. And then guess what happens? Yeah, they still can't even hear very well. So good for you for looking into doing this now. Now, what did that identity frame do? Where did I help reframe their way of thinking? On doing what? Doing this now. So let me do this again because there's going to be a question you're going to ask right after it. So, good for you for you guys looking at doing this now. I mean, I talk to a lot of people and, some people, they don't really mind waiting until their hearing is, in this range, and then they have to spend $12,000-$15,000 plus on hearing aids, and then they still can't even hear very well. I mean, for you, how come this is so important to you now, though? Now, why would I sigh there? And, some people, why would I sigh there? What does that communicate? What does it communicate? That you see this happen all the time. Okay? Now, what am I also communicating? They don't mind, waiting until their hearing is in this range, and then they have to spend $15,000 plus on hearing aids, and then they can't even, they can't even hear very well. And what do I do with the price conditioning? See, I tied in your price conditioning. Now, that's what you guys had on your script, like 10, 12, 15. How much is your hearing aids normally? How much are the most expensive hearing aids?
$12,590.
Oh, well, where'd you get $15,000? It was on your script.
It exists.
Okay. So see how I'm price conditioning? I'm just putting it right in the identity frame. Now, see that seeds in their mind what? The fear of future pain if they don't change now. See, I'm seeding that with their identity, okay? Being able to hear it. I mean, for you, how come this is so important to you now, though? Now, why would I emphasize the word this? Where does their brain go? What is this? So for you, why is this so important to you now, though?
This is the problem.
What is this? The problems, okay? Well, the reason why this is so important now, and they start telling you why it's so important now, but who are more importantly, they telling themselves. Now, see how I can totally flip this and focus on and get their mind to think differently. I mean, for you, how come this is so important to you now, though? Now, what did I get their mind to focus on? Now. It's a what? Timing thing. See, I asked the same exact question. But notice the verbal pauses, those 3 periods, and then I emphasize the word, can completely change what the prospect thinks. For you, how come this is so important to you now, though? I mean, you certainly sound motivated, but for you, why is this so important to you now, though? See, I can completely shift your prospect's way of thinking by using verbal pausing and emphasizing certain words. Some of you look like I just ran over you. Does that make sense to everybody? You have any questions on that? I can show you. Okay? All right, let's move on. Okay, now there's other problem awareness questions that you'll ask. I'm just showing you a few of these here now. Now, solution awareness questions. See, once I've helped them understand what their real situation is, I built a gap, I've helped them find 3, 4, 5 problems they didn't realize they had, that's not enough to make the sale. I also have to get them to see and feel what the future looks like once the newfound problems are solved. Why do I have to do that? Some of you might have heard of future pacing, right? Why do I got to get them to see and feel what their future looks like once the newfound problems are solved? What does that trigger in their mind? Certainty. Because if I only help them see they have problems, but they don't see how I can solve those, why would they buy? I've also got to get them to see and feel, more importantly, feel how their life is different once they can actually hear. Now, why would I have to do that? Can somebody tell me why? For me to make the most sales I can, to help the most people, I've got to get them to see what their future looks like once the problem is solved and they can hear. Right here.
Then they feel committed to do something about the problem.
Well, they can see what it feels like. They feel what the future looks like. And that causes more what? Urgency to change. See, it all comes back to the word change, everything that we're doing here. Now, I'm going to show you, this is what I saw in your script. This is not a bad question. I just want to reword it. So I saw in it, if you don't mind me asking, has there been any particular reason why you haven't done anything about this sooner? When you ask that question, typically what type of answer do you get?
Lazy.
Oh, I've just been kind of lazy about it. Oh, I just kind of what?
If you got them in the right spot, they'll give you some.
Some people will.
There. Yeah.
But why not get?
To ask that at the right time.
Yeah, but why not get everybody to that spot? That's what I'm trying to say. What's that? So they're just some of them are opening up, right? The easy ones. Yeah. Companies typically don't hire us to train you how to sell to the easy ones. They typically hire us to be able to train to the other 95%, be able to sell to them.
I don't have an issue.
Right? Or they might say that. Well, I just didn't think I had an issue. Surface level. Now, if I relanguage it, though, to this. So, now watch my tonality, watch my facial expressions. So, before you came in, were you out there looking for hearing aids so you could get your hearing back? Or what were you doing to make sure you could really hear your grandkids? Now, I'm going to get one of 2 answers typically, or maybe 3 answers. They might say what? Oh, no, we haven't done anything. Now, do I just want to go, okay, and go to the next surface level question? I want to, what's prevented you though? Oh, what's held you back? Why would I want to ask that question there? Oh, what's prevented you from doing that? Why do I want to ask that question in that tone?
Because of their objection.
Okay, what else? Somebody else. Somebody else back here. What's that?
It's not a yes or no answer. It's an open-ended question.
It's an open-ended question. If I'm asking, is there any particular reason, they could say, no, not really. No, I just haven't looked at it yet. Didn't think I had a problem. Too surface. But I'm asking more of an open-ended question here. Now, so they say, what's prevented you from doing anything about it? See how I want to challenge their way of thinking that's what? Allowed the problems to stay the same. Now, I can't use a challenging tone in the first couple minutes because I haven't built a what? no gap. But at this point, can I ask some challenging questions more? Now, I'm not being mean. Oh, what's held you back? It's kind of like a challenging / concern tone, right? Can I ask more challenging questions at this point after I built a gap and they feel crazy problems? Yes, okay? Because they're already open. Oh, what's held you back? Or what's prevented you from doing anything about it? What's prevented you from doing that, though? Well, and then they tell me. Now, they could say this. I could ask the same question. They could say, yeah, we've looked into it, right? Now, some might say, yeah, we looked into this hearing aid. We went to this company. Would they say that too? Or they might be more vague and they're like, yeah, we've looked into it. Now, what would I want to ask next? Because do I really understand what they mean by, yeah, we've looked into it? Yeah, we've looked at some different options. What does that even mean? Why would I want to find out who they've looked at or what options they've looked at? What would that help me understand? Over here. You guys have been quiet over here. What's going on? Give them some Starbucks.
It would help you understand what steps they've taken so far.
Yeah, because would I want to understand? Because if I'm going through different hearing aid options and they told me, well, yeah, and if I said, well, who were you actually looking at or who did you actually meet? Well, we talked to this company and that company. Oh, those are fairly decent companies. What held you back from going with them? Well, the reason why I didn't go with them was because of X and because of Y and because of Z. Now, what do I know? I know probably what their concerns or objections are. Do I want to know what their concerns or objections are before they give them to me? Why? So I can prevent them from happening in their mind. Remember I talked about in the beginning, were you born with advanced objection prevention skills? Do you see, top 1% salespeople, we're not necessarily focused on objection handling. Do you know what we're focused on? How do we prevent the objection from happening in their mind? Do you guys love objections? You just starve for them, like, oh, I hope they give me to think it over and do more research, and they need to talk to their spouse all in the first 30 minutes so I can spend an extra hour with them and then hope and pray it's going to work out. No, you don't like it. It burns you out, right? You have anxiety on a Friday when they said they need to think about it and you're supposed to meet with them on Monday and you're like, I hope they buy, I hope they buy, I hope they buy. Don't you? So I want to have control of that to help the prospect. That doesn't mean you're never going to get an objection, but if I can prevent 50 to 70% of the objections you get now, by default, I'm going to what? Make far more sales. Okay, it just all adds up here. So, we talked with company X. Oh, that's a fairly decent company. What held you back from going to them? Remember, that's that fairly decent. Now, if I've already used fairly decent a few times, am I going to use it there? Yeah, they're not that bad. What held you back from going to them? See, I can just switch it. Yeah, they're not that bad. What held you back from going with them? See, I'm seeding the same thing. Doubt that might not be good. Okay? All right, let's keep going. There's other things we have to ask there. Now, let's say in this example, here's where we're going to get them to focus on the future. So let's say that we come in, we get you the right hearing aids like we do with other clients. Besides you just being able to hear your grandkids and like you mentioned, like be a part of them growing up. How do you see these benefiting you the most though? Now, what did I just do? I repeated back the things they said they, what? Wanted, but I'm also finding out what? Besides those things, what? How they see it helping them the most though. Do I want them to tell themselves and me 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ways that these hearing aids are going to help them the most, or just one way? What's going to build the bigger gap? What's going to cause them to have more urgency to change? The more things they see and feel how it's going to help them, the more likely they are to buy. Well, I also seen it help me with like when I go to concerts and I'm having a hard time, like or whatever they say. See how they're telling themselves how they see your solution helping them the most. Is that something you possibly want them to tell themselves? Because if you tell them, oh, well, our patients, they see increases in this, this, and this, that goes, well, one ear, out the other. Because you're biased, you're the salesperson trying to sell them something. Okay? Let's keep going here. Now, they're going to give me logical answers. If I ask that question, besides blank, how do you see this benefiting you the most? What would a prospect maybe say? Give me some logical based answers. Somebody over here. Because they're going to tell you, oh, it would help me with this. It would help me with that. How about this table? What would an average prospect say?
Well, it helped me hear better.
Help me, okay. But we already said, besides you being able to hear your grandkids, and you're just repeating back what they said, I'm already saying besides that, how do you see that helping you the most?
Well, I'd be happier with...
In what way?
Well, just with my ability to communicate with my family.
Yeah. Then, so they gave me the logical answer. I'd be happier. Still kind of vague, still kind of surface level. So then, I've got to get them to emotionally. Okay, but being able to have that with your family, what would that do for you? What would it do for you personally?
Well, it would get rid of a lot of the stress that me and my wife have been having.
How long have you had that stress in your life?
Long time.
What's it doing to you guys?
Hurting our marriage.
In what way?
Well, we just feel like I don't even know her anymore.
Yeah. How does your spouse feel about you being able to hear her better?
She wants me to.
Yeah. Okay. Now, why did I lower my tone in that concern tone when I said, what would that do for you personally? Why would I lower my tone? Empathy. It's the same thing again. Okay? Then he tells me something, and what did I do? I probed off that. See, it's like peeling layers off an onion. The more layers you help peel off the onion, the more likely the prospect wants to change. The less layers you peel off, the less likely they want to change. Everybody's starting to get this now. Okay. Now, let's keep going here. Then I might ask a second solution awareness question. Okay? But how would it be different, though? I mean, you being able to hear your family like you did 20 years ago, I mean, how do you see your life being, I don't know, like how would it be different than it is now, though? Now, what does that question do? What does that cause them to see and feel?
See the future and feel happy.
See what the future looks like once newfound problems are solved. Now, if I said it too fast, how would it be different, though? You being able to hear your family like you did a long time ago, how would your life be different than it is now? Oh, I don't know, I'm sure it'd be good. You're just going to get vague answers, surface level. Pay attention to my verbal pacing. Pay attention to where my face goes, how I'm acting like I'm thinking about what I'm going to ask. Why would I want to look up and act like I'm thinking deeply about the question I want to ask? What does that cause in the prospect's mind? It causes them to feel like I'm about to ask them a deeper question, a thought-out question, which causes them to what? Give me a deeper answer. You see where we're going here? How would it be different, though? I mean, you being able to hear like you were 25 years ago, I mean, how would your life be, I don't know, like how would it be maybe different than it is now? Well, the reason why, it would just be, and they start emotionally opening up, okay? Concerned tone. Now, have you ever got an email or a phone call with the prospect you met with and they say something like this, hey, we really liked you and what you guys had to say, like, really liked it, but we decided it's just not a good time for this right now, but we'll get back to you when we're ready. Keep in touch. Raise your hand if you ever got something like that. Well, what are you going to do now? Argue with them, tell them why they're making a mistake and why they need to get the hearing aids? How often does that work? Well, numbers game. It works sometimes, right? It's like golf. Who in here plays golf? Okay, it's like your golf game, right? 17 holes, you were not that good. But on that one hole, those couple shots cause you to get this like adrenaline rush, and so you keep going and back and doing what? Playing golf, right? Same with sales. We get that one sale out of 20. That rebuttal works, but it's a numbers game, so we keep using it because we get that adrenaline rush, that dopamine, okay? I just want it to work most of the time because I can help more people. So if we get this, what's the first thing we have to do? Get them to what? Get them to what?
Lower their guard.
Let their guard down to tell me what their real concern is. Is that their real concern? That it's not a good time to hear?
This is smoke screen.
Is that what they're? It's just not a good time for me to hear. Yeah, it'll be better for me to hear in 10 years. See, that's not a concern. That's just them being nice to you. They have an objection. They just don't want to tell you. So I got to get them to let their guard down. So what can I do? Now, first I want to call them. If I get an email, I want to call them first. Why would I want to call rather than just email them back? More personal, and I can hear how they respond. I can hear their tonality. I can read their tonality, okay? Right, which is kind of out of the subject here. Now, if I can't get a hold of them, I can email them that or text them that. So the first thing I'm going to do, if they answer the phone, hey, Bobby, I got your email. Hey, that's not a problem. Can I ask you something though? Sure. Okay, this is kind of in the weeds, but why would I say, can I ask you something though? Why wouldn't I say, let me ask you a question though, and then ask the question? I need to get their permission. Can I?
One seems assumptive.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. What? And then you just bowl over with them. Be careful about saying, let me ask you a question, just asking a question, because your prospects most of them will feel, unless they're a lay down, that you're just bowling over them. Okay? So can I ask you something? Sure, go ahead. What did I just see just by my tone there? That what I'm about to ask them is what? Really important. So yeah, sure, go ahead. How can I communicate to you that you might be making a mistake without you getting upset with me? Oh, sure, I wouldn't get upset with you. What do you have in mind? Let me do this again. Pay attention to my tonality. Pay attention to my facial expressions. How can I communicate to you that you might be making a mistake without you getting upset with me? Well, I wouldn't get upset with you. What do you have in mind? Now, what if I did it this way? Can I ask you something? Sure, go ahead. How can I communicate to you that you're making a mistake without you getting mad at me? Well, Jeremy, I know it's just a big decision. We don't have much money. What was the difference? I said the same words. What was the difference?
Second one, you came off as a know-it-all.
Know-it-all, and I'm going to trigger what? Defensiveness. But the first one, how did I come across? That I'm concerned for their consequences if they don't do anything about this. Every time your prospect, sure, what do you have in mind? And then it doesn't stop there. See, now I've got them re-engaged. I can't tell you how many sales I won because of things like this when I was in my 18-year sales career. Cannot tell you how many prospects sent emails or something like that, and just by doing something like this, re-engage them, and then they bought. Okay? Now, then I've got to loop back around after I've said this, that you might be making a mistake without you getting upset. Sure, go ahead, Jeremy. Then I'm going to use what's called a consequence question. Now, this is just a kind of a generalized one that I put together. We're going to come up with a few for your industry here in the next few minutes. So I'm going to loop around. What if you don't do anything about this and your hearing keeps getting worse? How are you going to be able to hear your kids at that point? What happens if you don't do anything about this and your hearing keeps getting worse like it has been, and now you can't even hear your grandkids anymore? Now, what tone did I start with? Challenging. And what tone did I end with? Concerned. Oh, okay. There's some questions you can start with one tone and end with the other. Just threw a little change up for you. Why would I want to start off with a challenging tone? What if you don't do anything about this? Why would I want to start off with a challenging tone in that context? Okay? Yeah, makes them think. What else? I want to trigger what? Their emotions. So in that context, if I talk a little bit faster with a challenging tone, I trigger their emotions, their emotional drivers. What if you don't do anything about this and your hearing keeps getting worse like it has been, and now you can't even hear your grandkids at that point? Now, why would I want to end with concern tone, though? Anybody out here? Why would I want to end with the concern tone? Remember, your tone is how what? The prospects interpret the meaning behind why you're asking that. If they feel you're concerned for this happening, I'm building more trust. I'm pulling them back in. They're pulling me back in. Okay? Now, give me an example of what you would put here. What if you don't do anything about this and repeat back some of the issues? Somebody tell me. We're going to come up with a couple right here on the spot.
You lose your job.
What if you don't do anything about this? Your hearing keeps getting worse? What would I say? Just give me something as personal as you possible with your last sale.
What if you don't do anything about this and your hearing keeps decreasing and your boss decides he can no longer have you on the job because you can't hear the trucks around you?
Okay, good, but I want to narrow that down.
Your cognitive ability declines.
Okay, good. Now, would the average prospect understand what you meant by that fully?
They would if I was sitting in front of them. Yeah.
Are you sure? Because you explained that before. What other words could I use that meant the same thing that every prospect would feel more than just hear like really big words? What?
Your understanding of speech.
Okay, but I want to make it sound like it's kind of bad. Understanding of speech is kind of...
Your brain shrinks.
Okay, well, let's come up with different words. So we're right on the path. Keep it here with this gentleman. You're on the right path, but I want to use words that trigger emotional drivers, not just words that are like industry-specific words that may or may not mean much to the prospect compared to what it means to you. Because you understand all this. They understand this much compared to you, right? What if you don't do anything about this and think about your last prospect. Instead of saying you're cognitive, what did you say?
You forget. Sorry.
What if you don't do anything about? Just think about one of your last prospects that bought from you. What was their problem and the consequence if they didn't buy?
That their memory's going to keep declining.
Okay, and they said, and why was having their memory so important to them now? Why not keep pushing it down the road, hope it improves?
Mostly spouses, where their spouse was getting over it.
Upset or something?
Yes.
What if you don't do anything about this and what? Put in the words.
And your spouse leaves.
What if you don't do anything about this and Mary feels like you're not understanding her and she ends up leaving you? That could be, right? But do you see, but hold on. I want to make sure everybody understands this. This is really important. Am I going to use this consequence question right here on every single prospect I talk to? Why not? Because they don't feel like you understand their unique situation. I have to plug in what they said they wanted. I have to plug in what they said, not just a cookie cutter consequence question. That was a really good one. Let's go with somebody else with another one. Somebody over here that hasn't talked, right back there. What if you don't do anything about this and
you develop dementia?
What if you don't do anything about this and you start getting dementia? What would your family do at that point?
Memory care facilities are $8,000 to $9,000 a month.
Oh, I understand.
One pair of hearing aids
Sure.
can keep you out of it.
Yeah. What if you don't do anything about this? You start getting dementia, and now they have to put you in
A memory care facility.
a memory care facility. I mean, what would be going on with your family at that point? Or something like that. See how I can literally change the consequence question based off the answers the prospect gave me. Let's do one more real quick. I'm not exploiting it. I'm helping them relive their pain. I have to help them see what the consequences are if they don't do anything about solving it. Right there in the back of the room.
Sometimes saying dementia though is the best way to word it because
Yeah.
well we all lose our memory as we get older. That seems to be a common response. But when we talk about cognitive function, it's the ability to complete normal everyday tasks.
Yes, and we would want to plug that in. You know, you're not able to, and you repeat back some of the task rather than cognitive function because I'm going to say like the average prospect doesn't necessarily understand what that means compared to what you understand that means. So we have to speak in we have to humanize it if that makes sense. Okay, that's what I mean. That's really good back there. Okay, good. Okay, now, let's say if they come like, oh no, I definitely have to do something. Okay, here's a way I can pull them back in. Well, I mean, you certainly sound motivated, but for you, why look at doing this now? I mean, like, why not push it down the road like a lot of people do who end up losing their hearing? Now, what did I just do there? Well, you certainly, no, I definitely need to do something. Well, for you, I mean, you certainly sound motivated, but why look at doing this now? I mean, why not push it down the road like a lot of people do who end up, what's a negative thing they don't want? Losing their hearing. But be as specific as possible to the last prospect you sold to. What was their main problem? Like the main thing they wanted to change. Rather than just, you got to repeat back a negative consequence where they're like, oh, I don't want to be like that.
Losing the confidence of the people who you work with because they can't trust that you're going to hear their
Okay?
instructions.
Rather than just pushing it down the road, and now the people you work with don't even trust that you understand them, if that was the thing. See how I can plug that in. Now, do I want to say 2 paragraphs of that? No, because then that would what? It dilutes the emotion out of the question. It's too long, it's fluffy. Don't ask fluffy questions. Where you ask 2 or 3 questions in one. Who's guilty of asking 2 or 3 questions in one question, and then the prospect just answers one of the 3 questions you asked? Whose responsibility is that? See what we're doing? Okay. Well, the reason why I have to do this now is, okay, now, not going to go through your presentations. I'll let you guys to look at that now. We don't have time for that. But after I go through the presentations, now when you go through hearing aid options, are you typically showing them 1 option, 3 options? What are you typically doing on average? Just so I understand.
We try to narrow it down to a couple of options that are most applicable to them.
Who's talking back there?
That's me.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm like, where's he at? So 2 to 3 different options, okay? So after I show them the 2 to 3 options, I might lean in and say, do you feel like this could be the answer for you? Or, now, at this point I'm going to get 1 of 2 answers. Do you feel like this could be the answer for you? Yeah, I do. Or they're going to say, I do, but, and they're going to tell me their concern. I do, but I just don't know if I have the money for it. So you would have already brought up the money for the hearing aids and all that stuff before this, okay? So they're going to say, I do, but, and then they're going to tell you their concern. Do we want to know their concern right here? Or just try to guess it? No, we want to know. Now, let's say if they're like, oh, I really do, but I just don't know if I have the $9,000. Well, money aside, why do you feel like it is though? Why wouldn't I try to overcome the money objection right there? Why would I say, well, money aside, why do you feel like it is though? Well, the reason why I feel like it's going to help me is because of A, B, C, D. Is it now more easier for me to come back after they tell themselves why it's what they're looking for to help them overcome the money concern? See how I want to, well, money aside, why do you feel like it is though? Now, if they don't raise a concern, hold on, why do you feel like it is though? Well, the reason why I feel like it, and then they start telling me and who? Themselves. Why they feel like it's what they're looking for. See how we're getting them to do all the work and sell themselves. Now, more than likely, what I would do for your industry is ask it in this way. So let's say I show them 3 options, and I'm going to say, which of these would you maybe lean more towards? Right? So if I'm showing 2 or 3 options, which of these do you feel like would help you the most? Or which of these would you possibly lean more towards? And they pick one. Why would I want to say, well, what caused you to pick that over the others? Oh, I didn't think you'd pick that one. What caused you to pick that one over X and Z? Well, the reason why and what are they doing? Telling themselves why this is what they're looking for. See? Okay, you're starting to get it now at this point. Okay. Now, I might even ask, well, what specific aspects have we gone over do you feel like are really going to help you the most, though? That might be another commitment question I asked. And then I've got to tell them what the next steps is. Do I want to get to the end and be like, well, what do you think? Well, get back to me. You want to email me? You want to get back to me next week and let me know what you want to do? No, you're not going to make many sales doing that. Okay? So I've got to tell them what the next steps are. Well, I don't really have anything else to go over with you. It looks like we covered the basis of, not basics, basis of what you're looking for to make sure you get your hearing back. Really the next step would be is we'd make some type of arrangement for your blank. You can use blank or blank. And then at that point we would, and then you repeat back what the next step is. What is the next step after they pay? Somebody back here. What's the next step? Right here.
I mean, one thing I always use is, especially if it's about the money, I always say, well, if it's really about the money, what we can do is I'll give you an extra $500 off to go with the pink with purple polka dots. We're trying to get away with those, and then they're usually, oh no, I definitely don't want those. We'll go back to the normal price. So. Is that in my mouth?
Okay, I got you. So we're just, the point is we're telling them what the next step is would be. So what would the next, don't say money. What, okay, so what are you saying?
If we sold it, we got to pick a color for them, order them in.
Yeah, really the next step is we would pick the colors you want. Now, do you want pink polka dots or what do you want? Playful tone. Get some laughing. And then at that point we would
set a date for them to come in.
Set a date for you to come in. And then I'm going to ask, would that be appropriate? Would that help you? Would that be appropriate? Just like that. That's it. Would that be appropriate? Okay, just like that. Okay? Now, do you want me to show you how to help prevent the spouse objection? We've got about 15 to 18 more minutes. Let me show you a few things, like just kind of odd, just things all over the place here. Okay, now, the main thing I want to do with the spouse objection is prevent it. So if I can start seeding that from the very first part of that conversation, by the time I get to the end, I help really reduce the likelihood of me getting that. Okay? So I might say, so if they start talking about their hearing being bad, what would be a question I'd probably want to ask? Oh, now let's say the spouse isn't there, right? So what I say, how does your spouse feel about you losing your hearing? Why would I want to ask that? How does your spouse feel about you losing your hearing? How does your spouse feel about you not being able to be in the same room with your kids anymore? Now, what would she or he probably say to that? Nope, she doesn't care about my hearing. What would they probably say?
She hates that I can't.
What?
She brags at me all the time about it.
Yes. So that's the first part. So if he, let's say it's a he in this example. Let's say Dan starts telling me that Cindy gripes about it all the time. She's sick and tired of his hearing. It's harder for him, this is just one thing. It's harder for him to then come back and then like, well, I need to talk it over with her. It's just harder because he's already saying that she wants him to change. Now I could follow up with this. Well, I mean, did she now, let's say if they're like, oh, I don't know, she doesn't even really care about it. Would you maybe get that answer sometimes? They might say, oh, I don't know, like, I don't even think he cares about it. Then I might lean in, I mean, does she want you to get hearing aids so you can start listening to her again? Does she want you to keep not being able to hear in the family? And what type of tone did I use? Concerned tone. See, it's just a way I come back with that question. In case they say, oh, well, he or she, I don't think they really care about me. Does she want you to keep losing your hearing, or would she rather have you hear? Oh, well, yeah, don't get me wrong. She'd rather have me hear. See, I'm triggering that, okay? Now, let's say I could also use this towards the end. Now, I wouldn't necessarily use this one in the middle. This is only for certain situations. But what if they say, I'm going to go talk with my spouse, need to talk it over. Well, my concern for you is what if you go to her and she doesn't want you to get the funds for the hearing aids so you're able to start hearing again? I mean, how would you ever be able to hear your grandkids without the hearing aids? My concern for you is what if you go to her, she doesn't want you to get the funding for the hearing aids, how are you going to be able to actually still go back to work? It's the how-to question. Now, what does that question get him or her to think of? How is this ever going to change if I don't do anything? Okay, now there's other contexts that we'd go through. There's more training this. I've got to speed this up a little bit. Now, I could also do this. Let's say after the first thing, because you typically want the spouse to come in. Are they sometimes in the waiting room? Okay, so you want them to come in. Here's how you do it. Would it help you if we brought your spouse in here to go over the results and different options so you can get your hearing back? Because I don't want you sleeping on the couch tonight because you haven't let her know that you're losing your hearing, Bob. Now, what does that do? What was that? Playful tone, right? Why would I use a playful tone at the end? Yeah, it gets them laughing. Now, notice what I said there. Would it help you? Not, hey, do you want your spouse to, can you have your spouse come in here because I need both of you to make the decision? How does that help them? See, I've got to frame it in a way where he or she feels like it helps them to have the spouse involved, not helps you close the deal. There's a big difference there. Would it help you if we brought Cindy in to go over kind of the results and some different options? Because I don't want you sleeping on the couch tonight because you haven't told her you're losing your hearing. Okay, something like that. Okay? Now, here's what I noticed in your script here. A couple of different things. How to help get buy-in within the hearing test. So this is not bad. I'm just going to help you relanguage it a bit. So what I saw is, hey, that's pretty amazing, don't you think? So I think at this point, this comes up after they put the hearing aids in and you kind of test it like, wow, I can hear real quick, right? So when you say that's pretty amazing, don't you think, they're going to say, yes. Yeah, it's great. So what if I worded it to this? What do you feel is the biggest difference with your hearing aids in now compared to when you don't have those in? And what does that do in their mind? What do they start to think about now? Okay, what else? So in your mind, what do you feel is the biggest difference with the hearing aids in now compared when you didn't have those in? They start to tell themselves what the biggest difference is. Rather than, yes, it's good. See the difference there, okay? Just simply relanguage some of these questions are going to give you a different result. What about this? Wouldn't it be nice if you could hear like this all the time? Yeah. See, that's all I'm getting though. What if I said this? How do you see your life being different, being able to hear like this compared to how it is now? How would it be different for you? Like being able to hear like you just did, how would it be different for you than it is now? And where did their brains start to go? Imagining how it's going to be different compared to what it is now. See how I'm causing their brain to open up more emotionally rather than saying, yeah, it'd be really good. See, if I'm asking surface level questions, what can I expect? Surface level answers, okay? Now, what about this one? Let's say if you're talking with the spouse, what about this? Wouldn't it be nice if they could hear like this all the time? Yeah, it would be nice. I mean, they're going to say no, right? Yeah, it'd be nice. What if I relanguage it to this? How would you feel if Dan could hear like this all the time? What would be different for you if Dan could actually hear you? And what type of tone did I use? How would you feel if Dan was able to hear like this? Oh man, that would relieve a lot of... See, it's all in how I ask the question and the words I'm using. It's the words I'm using, and it's how I'm pacing out the question, it's how I'm using my tone to get a completely different reaction. What if I said this? How would you feel if he's able to hear like this all the time? Oh yeah, it'd probably be good. Too fast. How would you feel if he could hear like this all the time? Okay, see the difference. Now, let's go to step number 3, and we're going to end it with here. Step number 3 is eliminating sales resistance, okay? And it's all about neutralizing the hidden sales pressure that's in the conversations that you're having with your potential customers. Now, who in here has heard of the ABCs of closing? Remember we talked about this? Okay. Remember that show, me and Nick were talking about it, put that coffee down, coffee's for closers, right? Alec Baldwin on the board, put that coffees down, coffee's for closers. What if I suggested to you that mantra is how average people sell, if I can get the tone to work here? Yeah, right? You got to get the pink leads. See, top salespeople in your industry and in any industry do not view selling as adversarial. It's not you against the prospect trying to win them over so you make money. That's what average salespeople do in our day and age. Top salespeople view selling as collaborative. It's you working with your prospects, helping them find and solve problems they didn't realize they had. Now, does that mean you get to the end and like, well, get back to me if you're interested? No, you're not going to close anybody like that. Okay, we have to tell them what the next steps are, but we have to view selling as collaborative. Okay, we're problem finding, we're problem solving. Now, what we want to practice more, I've talked to you about this before, is we want to practice the ABDs of selling. Now write this down. That's always be disarming. Everything I've showed you, which is just a brief overview of what we train people in any industry, is all meant to get the prospects to let their guard down and keep their guard down the entire sales process you are taking them to. Okay? Now, I want to show you, do you ever get this objection right here? Hey, can you just tell me how much it's going to cost and I'll tell you if I'm interested? Okay. Raise your hand if you ever get this. Okay. Now, once again, did the prospect wake up and plan that objection? Or was that a trigger reaction based off of what? Something we did. Probably our tonality or the questions we asked would trigger them to react that way. So when you get this objection, you have three choices. You can just tell them the price without building any gap. That's not going to work, right? Oh, that's too expensive. Why would that not work? Most of the time. Because they have nothing to compare it to. They don't even know what their problems are, right? They just see cost-based thinking rather than results-based thinking. Now, the second option that a lot of people do is we try to sweep it underneath the rug. Oh, yeah, I'll go through that later, but I don't even know if I can help you. Let me ask you. And then you start asking questions, and then you just hope and pray that they don't. Hey, can you just tell me how much it's going to cost? So the second option doesn't work that well either, right? We can't swipe it underneath the rug and hope and pray they don't bring it. Oh, yeah, I'll go through that later, but let me ask you. Because what do? We lose trust because they feel like we're what? Hiding the price. So what we want to do is we want to answer it, but we want to answer it indirectly where it makes sense to them why we're asking the questions and why we wouldn't know what it's going to cost yet. Because do you really know what it's going to cost before they go through a hearing aid test? You don't even know what the real problems are. So how would you even know? So here's what I want to do here. The first thing I want to do, thank you very much for doing that. Oh my gosh. No, that's really cold. But anyways, it's okay. Just wanted to see what you do. Okay. So I want to first agree with them. Oh, yeah, for sure. We'll go through all that. I mean, it really is all going to depend on the results of your hearing test. And that's going to show us like kind of the severity of your hearing loss, as well as how your brain processes speech and background noise. And once we understand all those different details, I can go through all the different options we'd have for our clients. Would that help you if I did that for you? Now, what does that do? Now they understand what? Why you wouldn't even know because of what? It's all going to depend. Oh, so I agree first. Oh, yeah, we'll go through all that with you for sure. Why would I agree with them right there? Yeah, let their guard down. Oh, yeah, we'll go through all that for sure. I mean, it's really all going to depend on what? The results of your hearing test. Now, this is just something I threw up here on the plane over here. It's all going to depend on the results of your hearing test, and what else is it going to depend on? Tell me. You don't even have to copy that. Just what would it depend on in your mind? What? Issues is too
Lifestyle.
Vague. I like it, but what is it? Lifestyle's too. What does lifestyle mean?
Are they active or do they just watch TV all day?
Okay, would you put that in there, or would you put more severity of your hearing loss as well as how the brain processes speech and background noises? Would that have anything to do with the type of hearing aid they need?
Yeah.
What else would? I'm giving you ideas. That's what I'm trying to do.
What they tell you they want.
That's okay. That's not bad. It's really going to depend on the results of your hearing aid test.
Dexterity problems or fit or feel comfort-wise?
Could be. What type of hearing aid, do you want? Do you want something over your ear or in between? You could do that, or you could use this. But the point is what does it depend on? Go ahead.
How your hearing loss is affecting you.
Yeah, it could be. Results of your hearing aid test, as well as how you hear background noise and how you process when somebody talks to you. Go ahead.
Would it be appropriate, are you fishing for us to say their goals?
That's too vague. Not yet. I would just put something more like this. It's all going to depend on blank, blank, and blank. And once we understand, now, why would I say once we understand, why do I emphasize all? Once we understand all those different details, why would I emphasize all there? That makes it sound like what? There's a lot to this. And now they understand why I'm asking the questions in the first place. You see, that helps them let their guard. And once I understand all those different details, I can show you all the different options we have for our clients. Would that help you if I did that for you? Yeah, sure. No, it would not help me. They're not going to say that because now they understand why you don't know. You see what I mean? Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing. Who in here loses sales to this? I always save this for last, even when I'm going over time. Do you know why? Because when they're like, oh, your time's up, and everybody's like, no, keep them up. I lose sales to this. Okay? All right. Who in here loses deals for this? Okay. Now, can I ask you a question, though? Is that an objection? Why is it not an objection? Yeah, does the prospect go back after they leave your office and like, I really need to think this through. Let me get out a Google Excel sheet and write down all the positive things of hearing, and let me write down all the negative things of hearing, and I can compare it through. And I'm going to think through this for about 3 to 4 weeks. When you tell a salesperson you need to think it over, do you? No. You just tell them that because you have a concern that you don't want to tell them. So what is my first thing I have to do to find out what the real concern is? I have to get them to... Oh, it's the same thing. With everything I'm doing, I'm getting them to let their guard down, okay? So I'm simply going to agree. Oh, yeah, not a problem. What's your time frame on getting back to me in the next day or two just to see if I'm going to be available for you? Now, why would I say this rather than going right into the objection handling right there? What does this do to them when they think I'm about to leave? Where does their guard go? It goes down. So if they're at the office, yeah, that's not a problem. What's your time frame on getting back to me in the next day or two just to see if I'm going to be available for you? Now they think it's what? That it's over. And now that they're okay, so they're more comfortable, right? Because what most of you, maybe most salespeople do what? Well, you said that you need your hearing back. I mean, your hearing's really bad. What do you need to think about? And what do? Do they like, you're right, I don't know why. No, they get defensive, right? And then it becomes a numbers game again. So we don't want it to be a numbers game. Now, just to see if I'd be available for you. Well, let's say the prospect, I guess I could call you in a few days. Well, possibly. I'm not sure if I'd be randomly available like that. What I can do, if you have your calendar handy, I can pull up mine and have you book a specific time with me. That way you don't have to chase me down and vice versa. Would that help? Why would I say that way you don't have to chase me down? Busy. Does that raise my status or lower my status? Okay, raises my status. Now, here's the point. I don't plan on needing that second appointment. You know why? Because now I'm getting them to let their guard down. And what I'm going to do before they get up, I'm going to say, now, hey, before you go, now let's say you book the appointment for Tuesday. So it's on the calendar. Now, hey, John, before you go, what was it that you were, I guess, wanting to go over in your mind so I know what questions you'll have when we talk on Monday? Well, Jeremy, I'm just not sure about, well, Jeremy, it's just a big decision. I'm not sure if I have the money for this. And what did I just find? That it's a money objection. And now who's there to help them overcome the money objection? You are. And most of the time I can help them overcome that right there. And worst case, if I can't, now I have a booked appointment. Do you see what I'm doing? Now sometimes it might be like, well, it's just a big decision. Oh, well, what do you feel like, what questions do you have about the decision, just so I know what we'll talk about on Tuesday? Well, I'm just worried that, and sometimes you have to probe a little bit off that, but the point is, that's when they start to tell you their concern. Instead of saying, what do you need to think about, I'm just going to relanguage it to what? What was it that you were wanting to go over in your mind, just so I know what questions we'll have when we talk on Tuesday? See what I did there? Does that make sense? All right. Who in here ever encounters an A-type personality? Those A-type personalities, what are we going to do with them? They don't want to open up to you. You ask questions and they stay surface level the whole time because you haven't learned tonality yet. Notice I said yet. So I can do this. I can stop middle through the conversation. Sally, can I ask you something? Now, and this is, off the record. What's the main reason why you might be looking to get hearing aids? Can I ask you something? Yeah, sure, go ahead. Now, this is off the record. Safe zone. What's the main reason why you came in today? What type of tone did I just use? Concern tone. Why? Why would I say this is off the record? What does that do? And this is off the record. What's the real reason why you might be looking for hearing aids? If they haven't opened up to you. Why would I say off the record? Yeah, it's like the journal. It's like the journalist. Hey, this is off the record. I won't say anything about it. It's the same concept mentally. Okay, I can say that now. Hey, between you and me and between you and I and off the record, what's the main issues you're having with your hearing now? if they're not opening up. This is only when I would use this if they're not opening up. You don't need to use this if they're opening up. I just want to clarify that. Now, let's say if you can't get them to overcome the think it over objection, can I ask you something? Sure, go ahead. Between you and I, and this is off the record, what's really holding you back from moving forward so you can start hearing your kids again? Now, what did I just tie in? Them moving forward to what? The end result they said they want. Whatever that is, hearing their kids again. Now, why would I do that?
Have that emotion.
Yeah. I'm tying in them moving forward, paying to the end result of getting what they want. If they can get the funds, they get what they want. If they don't get the funds, they don't get what they said they wanted. It's hard for people to unattach from what they said they wanted. All right, here's what we did. We come to the end. 3 steps to becoming the trusted authority. Become a problem finder and problem solver, not a product pusher. Asking the right questions, but at the right time, and especially with the right tone. Gave you a few examples of that. And eliminating sales resistance. Now, you might be wondering, okay, Jeremy, what's the next step? How many of you have mastered human behavior, advanced tonality, advanced questioning, and objection prevention in the last three hours? Probably not. Hard to do that, right? As the saying goes, you can't teach a kid how to ride a bike at a seminar. So, a couple things to start on your journey. You're welcome to get our Barnes & Noble bestseller book. It's also a Wall Street Journal bestseller. You can find it in any bookstore. There is a QR code to get that. The New Model of Selling to an Unsellable Generation. And the last question, and I want to ask you this. Why did you get into this industry? To help people. How can you help people if you don't learn how to communicate to them? I know all of our intentions are good, right? You got into this industry because you want to help people. You might have seen, did you see somebody in your family that might have suffered from hearing loss? And that drove you to get into this industry. If we can't learn how to communicate, though, who does that affect? It affects you, but more importantly, who does it affect at the end of the day? Well, it affects your family, right? Does your family deserve you making more sales? Does it affect the charities you want to donate to? Does it affect the church you might donate to? Do they deserve you making more sales so you can donate more? Does it affect the company you represent that has given you an opportunity? Most importantly, who does it impact the most? Your prospects. Because if they don't buy from you, then what happens? Problems stay the same. Status quo, nothing ever changes. Now, like my good friend Bradley, who's the founder of Lightspeed, always says, is training something you did or is training something you do? It's something you did if you want to play the numbers game, right? But it's something you do if you want to play the what? The skills game. And like my good friend, Todd Peterson, who is the CEO, the former founder of Vivint, sold to Blackstone for close to $10 billion over the last 10 years, says, the path to someday I'll do it. One day I'll learn how to sell better. One day I'm going to acquire more skills to help more people, is the path that leads to nowhere. You see, today is the day you decide what level of this ball game you want to play at. In selling, there's these levels of the ball game, right? You decide which level you play at. But that decision affects who? Everybody. I always say this. I'll leave you this last thing. Success is simply a choice. Success is simply a choice. Choose well. Thanks for having me out here. I really had a good time the last 3.5. And thanks to Jared. Thank you for having me. Now, you're welcome to follow me on Instagram. There's my Instagram handle, Jeremy Lee Minor. You're welcome to follow me on YouTube, wherever you want to. And I just want to thank Jared for, we went back and forth for the last couple weeks with different questions. I was texting him about your industry and all those things. And, you know, you guys, there's some industries that we train that I feel like I just get the hint that they're more in it just to make a bunch of money. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like you want to have a profitable business because the more people you help, the more money you should make. But I really felt like after I met with Jared that you guys were here really for the right reasons. You like really want to help these people. Now, you should get paid for that, yes. But I really appreciate the feeling I got from meeting with Jared and some of the team and just really how they talked about people. So I just wanted to commend you on that. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, everybody, for having me here.